Chapter 2873, Guilty Conscience of the Rules of Heaven and Earth. 1. After walking for a while, Len Ruoshua finally got used to this head-heavy feeling. Then, with a thought, she moved Uncle Long and the others out. When Uncle Long and the others came out, the first thing they felt was dizziness, and then they swayed violently. After they managed to keep their balance with great difficulty, they finally had time to look at everything in front of them. Was this the land of chaos? It gave off a desolate feeling. Looking at the square inch of land in front of them, they were quite curious about how the materials here grew. Where did it grow? After a round of searching, Uncle Long and the others couldn't find a place suitable for plants to grow. They couldn't find any stones that could be used to refine weapons either. Schwer, can you really find the materials you need here? Uncle Long asked with uncertainty. I should be able to. I just don't know where it is. Len Ruoshua was also a little confused. She absolutely believed Qing Ju's words. However, she had no idea where the materials were. Girl, don't worry. The things you want are definitely here. However, this is the outer area of the land of chaos. You understand. Hearing Len Ruoxua's words, Tsang smiled. All right. I understand. Len Ruoshua nodded and led Uncle Long and the others in a random direction. I-oh. As they were walking, they suddenly heard a scream. Len Ruoshua quickly turned around and saw Lu Feng falling to the ground, half of his body covered by the thick fog. Are you all right? Len Ruoshua hurriedly walked over and pulled Lu Feng up. I'm fine. I just tripped. Lu Feng stood up in a sorry state, still holding a big gray stone in his hand. What is this? Len Ruoshua asked curiously. I don't know. It's probably some kind of forging material that I don't recognize. Lu Feng hugged the heavy boulder like it was a treasure, unwilling to let go. Let me see. First Elder walked over and said. If you won't let me see, go find it yourself. Lu Feng dodged, but still held the big stone he didn't recognize tightly. Seeing this, Tsang couldn't help but laugh and said, all right, stop fighting. It's just an ordinary stone. Puchi. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but laugh wildly. Only Lu Feng's face was red. He angrily threw the stone on the ground and mumbled in a low voice, why are there ordinary stones here? It's unbelievable. Why not? Do you think there are treasures everywhere? Let me tell you, stop dreaming. Other than the year-end fog and the brutal spiritual energy, the living environment here can't be compared to the divine realm at all. Azure smiled as he explained. Ah. No wonder there's no one here. Lu Feng said as he suddenly realized. Hearing this, Azure was somewhat speechless. He continued, those who can live here are not human. Everyone was silent. Was this considered an insult? However, they also understood Tsang's meaning. This was a place where special life forms were born, so it was naturally not a place where ordinary life forms could live. They had only stayed here for a short while, but they were already finding it difficult to breathe. Thanks then, everyone continued walking. This time, even if Lu Feng encountered a rock, he wouldn't be so surprised. However, he didn't plan on letting go of any stones he encountered, but he would first ask Tsang, and after getting a positive answer, he would decide whether to keep or leave those stones. Just like that, the group continued on their way, searching for treasures along the way, and they really did find many materials that could be used for forging artifacts. When they first saw the materials, the blacksmiths were extremely excited, but Tsang doused them with cold water. This was because Tsang had told them that they could not use the materials at all unless they had the Chaos Divine Flame. Instantly, the weapon craftsmen wilted. Their initial excitement from coming to the land of chaos was doused by Tsang, this bucket of cold water. Anything related to chaos was too high-end and not something they could possess or bear. Seeing that the weapon craftsmen had suffered such a huge blow, Shen Nua and the other alchemists were no longer confident. However, before they could ask the question in their hearts, Tsang very calmly told them that they could not use the medicinal ingredients here either. In an instant, the excited alchemist and blacksmith teams suffered a huge blow. The two groups of fellow brothers huddled together and cried bitterly. Sob. How could they be so cruel? Have you cried enough? Really, so what if he couldn't use it? I think it's worth it to come here. Uncle Long couldn't take it anymore when he saw them crying. Yes, it's already a great opportunity to be able to come, so you guys don't have to be so greedy. Ice Spirit said helplessly. You guys don't understand the pain of alchemists and artifact masters. Seeing the ingredients in front of you but not being able to use them is the most unbearable thing for pill masters and artifact masters. First Elder raised his head and sobbed when he heard this. Then what do you guys think we should do? You don't have the Chaos Divine Flame. Ice Spirit couldn't help asking. Schwer, can you help us melt it? No matter what, you have to let us experience the materials of the land of chaos. After hearing Ice Spirit's words, First Elder turned to look at Len Ruoxue with anticipation. All right, he said. Len Ruoxue nodded. She could tell that if she didn't agree, these few people would be in so much pain that they would wish they were dead. AI. Alchemists and blacksmiths. All of them were materials fanatics. Seeing that Len Ruoxue had agreed, the few alchemists and weapon refiners immediately came to life as if they had been injected with chicken blood. Then, they began to search for the ingredients that could be used in detail like hardworking bees. Seeing them like this, the people present could only feel helpless. As they had searched too carefully along the way, they had yet to reach the center of the land of chaos even after walking for a long time. In the end, Song couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, "Don't search here anymore, this is only the outer area, there are more good things inside." With this, the Armament Guild headquarters, Great Elder and the others gave up on the carpet search and reluctantly quickened their pace. After walking for an unknown number of days, when Len Ruoxue and the rest felt that the spiritual energy had become more violent, Tsang finally told them with certainty that they had arrived at the center of the land of chaos. The spiritual energy in the center was 10 times more brutal than that in the outer regions. According to Tsang's thinking, anyone below Reverent God level could do whatever they wanted. After the Great Elder and the others understood Tsang's meaning, they immediately cried, the depression in their hearts unable to be described. Sob. They had been tricked. He was even despised. They had clearly agreed that there would be more materials in the center, but now that they were here, they didn't want them to stay outside. Wasn't this bullying? However, it was undeniable that the spiritual chi here made the Grand Elder and the others feel a little uncomfortable. Len Ruoxue did not know how to comfort First Elder and the rest when she saw their regretful and worried faces. She could only follow Azure's instructions and send them back to the bracelet. When they entered the bracelet, the First Elder and the others could not help but cry out loud. Seeing this, Qingju could only comfort them, AI. You guys are too weak. Chapter 2874, A Guilty Conscience About the Rules of Heaven and Earth, Too weak? They were divine emperors. In the divine realm, a divine emperor was an existence that was only second to Reverent God level. Why did Green Vessel say that his strength was too low? Sob. Is this how you comfort others? This was like pouring salt on other people's wounds. With this thought in mind, the First Elder and the others from the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters looked at Qingju resentfully and said, Qingju, do you have a way to get us out? We just want to personally collect the materials. They could accept that they couldn't use the materials here, but they couldn't accept it if they couldn't do it in person. They had to go out and witness the birth of those materials with their own eyes. Qingju was in a difficult position. His sister had sent them in for their own good. He couldn't go against his sister's wishes, right? Qingju, you must have a way, right? Seeing that Qingju seemed to have something to hide, the chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters quickly asked. If I was at my peak, it wouldn't be a problem to protect you outside. But now, I can only let you stay outside for an hour a day. After an hour, you still have to come in. Facing the Great Elder's expectant gaze, Qingju could not bear to lie to him, so he could only tell him the truth. When First Elder and the others heard this, they thought that an hour would do too. It's better than being locked up in the bracelet. With Qing-Ju's guarantee, the First Elder and the others strongly requested Qing-Ju to send them out. Qing-Ju was helpless. He could only bid Leng Ruoxue farewell before sending them out. Faced with the First Elder and the others who were so insistent on coming out to personally gather the materials, Leng Ruoxue could only helplessly accept it. Fortunately, the Great Elder and the others were more punctual and did not cry or make a fuss because of the short time. Just like that, time passed day by day. Leng Ruoxue and the rest slowly moved towards the central region. However, Leng Ruoxue still did not discover any traces of the demon. Initially, she had asked Qing-Ju about it. However, Qing-Ju's strength had not fully recovered yet, and this was the land of chaos, so he could not probe too far away. When she asked Tsang, Tsang only told her that they would meet if fate brought them together. Instantly, Leng Ruoxue's temper was extinguished by Tsang's words. All right. They would meet again if fate brought them together. It seemed like she could only wait patiently. As they were approaching the center of the area, they discovered more and more materials. They had no choice but to slow down. Leng Ruoxue was also hoping that the demon would find her first. However, after an unknown period of time, the demon did not come. Instead, another uninvited guest came. Looking at the dark purple ball of lightning that was throbbing violently, Leng Ruoxue really wanted to know what it was. However, Tsang only cared about looking at the other party and did not even bother to introduce it to her. Detestable. Who gave you the permission to break open the void? After a long time, the crazily beating dark purple ball of lightning roared. Facing the other party's anger, Azure only laughed. Who said I broke through the void? What a joke, I'm just going home. Do I need to break the void? Thanks, how could you come here if you didn't break the void? Azure, don't forget your identity. You can't leave the divine realm as you wish. The thunderbolt ball could not help but remind him. I didn't leave. It didn't even break the void. Don't tell me you've forgotten that my God-protecting tower is connected to this place. Are you trying to stop me from going home? Azure said calmly. Ugh. The thunderbolt ball was stunned. It had really forgotten. However, after seeing Leng Ruoxue, the lightning ball couldn't help but shiver. It then roared, I can't stop you from going home, but why did you bring so many people to the chaotic world? This isn't a place where they can survive. You're harming them. Don't talk to me about all this nonsense. If that evil man can bring people here, why can't I? Are you looking down on me? Why don't we have a fight? Tsang Qing raised her eyebrows and asked with a smile. Who wants to fight you? This isn't a place where you can fight as you please. The thunderbolt ball said angrily. Tisk, if you can't beat me, just say it. I won't laugh at you. After hearing this, Azure said disapprovingly. Who can't beat you? I said, you can't fight here. The thunderbolt ball said stubbornly. All right. If you say we can't fight, then we can't fight. However, don't even think about stopping me from taking Nyo and the others here. Azure smiled evilly. This is not a tourist spot. Tsang's words made the lightning ball angry again. However, it still asked, when do you guys plan to leave? I don't know. I'm here with Nyo to collect materials. If there aren't enough materials, I definitely won't leave. Azure replied with a smile. Then what materials are you lacking? I'll give them to you. After thinking for a moment, the ball of lightning formed. It seems like they like to collect it by themselves. Azure said as he played with his furry little paws. These words made the thunderbolt ball burn with anger. Your sister. If he liked to collect them by himself, did that mean he wouldn't leave for a while? This can't do. It already had quite a few uninvited guests, so it definitely could not allow Leng Ruoxue and the rest to stay here. It could not let that demon know that Leng Ruoxue was here, or it would be the one in trouble. To be honest, it was not too afraid of the demon if it was on its own. However, if Leng Ruoxue was added to the mix, it had to consider the serious consequences that the other party might bring. Because when it was facing Leng Ruoxue, it would always feel a little guilty. And it was this trace of guilt that made it unable to act as self-righteously in front of Leng Ruoxue as it did in front of the demonic man and Song. It was extremely anxious about the laws of heaven and earth that had transformed into a thunderbolt ball in its heart. It couldn't understand why it was feeling guilty. It didn't do anything to let Leng Ruoxue down. Everything was according to the rules. However, even if it thought so in its heart, when it saw Leng Ruoxue, it couldn't help but feel its heart tremble. It was a feeling similar to meeting a natural enemy. The laws of heaven and earth knew that they had no confidence in front of Leng Ruoxue. Even though it did not know what was going on, it wanted to hide the moment it saw Leng Ruoxue. It did not want her to meet the demon. This was also the main reason why that demon had not noticed Leng Ruoxue's arrival. It had blocked off the area within 100 miles of Leng Ruoxue. And the laws of heaven and earth were simply unimaginable. If that demonic man found out what it had done, he would probably use the destruction of this place to threaten it. Hence, it really hoped that Leng Ruoxue and the rest could leave as soon as possible. They must not let that demon find any clues. However, as they got closer and closer to the demon, the laws of heaven and earth became more and more uneasy. Otherwise, it would not have appeared at this time. However, after it appeared, that detestable Tsang refused to leave with the rest. Furthermore, Leng Ruoxue was eyeing it like a tiger watching its prey. All of this caused the laws of heaven and earth to feel increasingly uneasy. But could it force him out? If Tsang were to cause a ruckus and alert that evil man, the consequences would be even more unimaginable. Chapter 2875, A Guilty Conscience About the Rules of Heaven and Earth. 3. Thinking of this, the lightning ball formed by the laws of the world couldn't help but release a deep sense of sorrow. In an instant, the atmosphere turned cold. Uncle Long and the others watched from afar, not daring to take a step forward. Life forms that could live in the land of chaos were definitely not simple. Uncle Long and the others were quite tactful about this. AI. In a high-level battle, they could just be onlookers. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, who could not figure out the identity of the thunderbolt ball, finally could not take it anymore and interrupted, Song, who is this guy? It he. Girl, you guess. Song Ming knew that Leng Ruoxue was very interested in the lightning ball's identity, but he deliberately kept her in suspense, making Leng Ruoxue so angry that she gritted her teeth and deliberately said, "Could he be your brother?" "You bastard! Who's its brother?" The two voices roared angrily in unison. "Then who are you?" Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and asked calmly. "I am the law of the world." The laws of heaven and earth that he was not prepared for blurted out instinctively when Leng Ruoxue asked him this question. The moment it said this, it deeply regretted it. It felt extremely uneasy and wanted to retreat, but Leng Ruoxue did not give it the chance to do so. It blocked the path of the laws of heaven and earth. Leng Ruoxue confirmed with a cold voice, "You're a law of the world." I. The regulations of the heaven and earth were somewhat at a loss for words. Could it say that it was not? Woo. Faced with Leng Ruoxue's oppressive aura and her body that was emitting a cold light, the guilty heaven-earth law slipped away. Is this really the law of heaven and earth? So this is what the laws of the heaven and earth look like. At the same time, Uncle Long and the others didn't care about the other party's identity and surrounded him curiously. It had to be said that they were disappointed to see the regulations of heaven and earth. In their minds, the laws of the world were the supreme controllers of laws, and sometimes even the divine lords and the dark lords had to be restrained by them. However, the high-end laws of the world in their minds were actually just a small ball of lightning. This was something they really couldn't accept. Disappointment. How disappointing. A deep sense of disappointment lingered in the hearts of Uncle Long and the others, and they no longer looked at the laws of heaven and earth with respect. As for Leng Ruoxue, she immediately stretched out her hand to grab the lightning ball. However, the heaven-earth law nimbly dodged it. "Uncle Long, help me catch this guy." I'm going to take care of it, Leng Ruoxue said angrily to Uncle Long and the others. Leng Ruoxue, who had held a grudge against the laws of heaven and earth for a long time, would not let it go no matter what now that she had seen the laws of heaven and earth. Humph. Since she dared to separate her from the evildoer, she had to be prepared to accept her revenge. When Uncle Long and the rest heard Leng Ruoxue's words, they immediately nodded their heads to express that they would definitely cooperate with her. However, after hearing their conversation, the regulations of the heaven and earth couldn't help but shiver and ask, what are you guys doing? I'm the law of heaven and earth, so don't mess around, or I'll punish you. Let's punish him. I'd like to know what kind of punishment he'll receive for beating up the regulations of the heaven and earth. Leng Ruoxue laughed coldly as she approached the laws of heaven and earth. The laws of the heaven and earth carefully and slowly retreated. Woo, how could he bully the laws of the heaven and earth like this? This woman, why wasn't she afraid of its threat? The laws of the heaven and earth were extremely abnormal. What a big pervert. If it was anyone else who heard its threat, they would have been so scared that they wouldn't dare to make a move. However, this woman in front of it was still so aggressive that she didn't intend to let it go and even wanted it to punish her. Your sister. There was no punishment for bullying the rules of the world. As he thought of this, the laws of heaven and earth became even more sorrowful. Yes. Bullying the laws of the heaven and earth was simply a waste of time, and the laws of the heaven and earth had no way of taking revenge on them. Otherwise, it would also be punished by the laws. It was not fair. It was too unfair. As the spokesperson of the laws, why didn't he have any personal safety? Protest. It wanted to protest. It demanded human rights. It demanded protection. Unfortunately, no matter how much the heaven-earth law protested in her heart, the laws did not move at all. Leng Ruoxue, who had planned to use violence, was slowly approaching the heaven-earth law. The regulations of the heaven and earth were so frightened that their little hearts were trembling, and they kept shouting, "Stay away, all of you stay away from me. Why are you running? Let's have a heart-to-heart talk." Seeing that the laws of heaven and earth were running around like headless flies, Leng Ruoxue began to coax them. I have nothing to talk to you about. Go away. I'm going home. The laws of heaven and earth were enraged. Where's your home? I'll be the guest. Leng Ruoxue asked with a smile. Don't. My family doesn't welcome you. The regulations of heaven and earth wanted to cry but had no tears. Why was this woman so difficult to deal with? He was the law of the world. The controller of the laws. Could it be that the other party was not afraid of it at all? Why? What was this for? The laws of heaven and earth howled in pain. Even if you don't welcome me, I still want to go. Leng Ruoxue said with a firm attitude. Thanks, you rascal. The laws of the heaven and earth were furious. They had never seen such a thick-skinned woman. Was she still a woman? Whatever you say. Take me to your house for a chat, or I'll find a way to destroy this place. Leng Ruoxue also threatened. Hearing this, the grief and indignation in the heart of the regulations of the heaven and earth increased by countless times. Was this what humans always said? If you're not a family, don't join the same family. That damn evildoer threatened it by destroying this place, and now this woman in front of it actually used the same trick. The laws of heaven and earth were really infuriated. However, it really fell for this. Woo-woo. If it wasn't for the fact that it was sure that the two of them had not met up so far, it would have thought that they had made up. The heaven-earth law was somewhat helpless. What should it do? He was really bringing Leng Ruoxue home. If that was the case, wouldn't the evildoer be meeting her? No. This was absolutely not allowed. The regulations of heaven and earth, which were extremely unwilling for the two of them to meet, remained silent for a long time. Leng Ruoxue treated it as if it was deep in thought and did not disturb it. At this time, Song, who also didn't want Niu to see the devilish man so quickly, opened his mouth and said, "Girl, why go home with it? If you want to clean up, then do it here. There's really nothing to see in this guy's territory." "Yup. There's nothing to see in my home, so let's settle our grudges here." Hearing Tsang's words about the laws of heaven and earth, he immediately cooperated. At this time, it didn't care about being afraid. The most important thing was to not let this violent man and woman who liked to threaten the rules of heaven and earth meet. Otherwise, its good days would come to an end. However, Lin Ruoxue wasn't that easy to fool. Seeing how the regulations of the heaven and earth refused to bring her home as a guest, she became suspicious. Then, she smiled and said to the rules of heaven and earth, "It's fine if we don't go to your house. Please get my man here. I heard that he's here. Can I not look?" If he found that evildoer, these two people would definitely team up to bully him. Thinking of this outcome, the regulations of the heaven and earth shook their heads decisively. "I don't know where your man is." "You really don't know?" Lin Ruoxue examined the laws of heaven and earth suspiciously before shouting at the top of her lungs, "Freak! A monster! Where are you? I've been bullied. Fuck! Can you not be like this?" The regulations of the heaven and earth were so depressed that they wanted to scratch the wall. Lin Ruoxue, on the other hand, was getting more and more excited. In fact, she didn't know if the evildoer could hear her call. However, seeing the way the regulations of heaven and earth were rejecting her, she felt that it was suspicious no matter how she thought about it, so she tried to shout. As expected, the lightning ball's color darkened after hearing her calling out to the evildoer. Lin Ruoxue thought that it was because it was so frightened that its expression changed. From this, she was sure that the evildoer was not far away. Since she knew that the demon was not far from here, Lin Ruoxue started to shout even louder. Seeing this, Uncle Long and the others also shouted the demon's name loudly. When they saw the rules of heaven and earth, they were so depressed that they wanted to bang their heads against the wall. "It's finished. It's finished." This place was so close to the demonic man's residence. Even if it tried to hide Lin Ruoxue's aura, some of her voice would still be heard. After all, it didn't dare to completely hide from the entire chaotic world. Otherwise, the demonic man would have found out about it. Now, it couldn't hide it anymore. More importantly, Lin Ruoxue had already started to scurry around, calling out for the evildoer from all directions. The regulations of the heaven and earth were extremely vexed. It was likely that they had lost this time. And the truth was just as the heaven-earth law had thought. The demon who had been cultivating in his room suddenly opened his eyes as if he had heard Schweier's call. However, at the beginning, he had only heard a sound and thought it was an illusion. After all, Schweier had been in seclusion and wouldn't come out so soon. Thinking about this, the demon sighed helplessly. He really missed Schweier so much that he was hallucinating. However, just as he was about to close his eyes and continue his cultivation, Schweier's voice entered his ears again. Although the sound was not loud, he heard it very clearly. It seemed to be very similar to his. With a bitter smile, the demon knew that he was really hallucinating. How could Schweier be here? However, he heard Uncle Long and the others' voices intermittently after that, which made him alert. If he had only heard Schweier's voice, he might have missed her too much. However, he shouldn't have missed Uncle Long and the others to the point that he was hallucinating, right? Thinking of this, the demon decided to contact Mu Li to ask about Schweier's situation. However, he did not expect that he could not contact Mu Li. He stood up with a whoosh. The evildoer had already realized that it might be a certain restless fellow who was up to no good. Stepping out of the room, the demon directly flashed out of the palace and began to lock onto the position of the law of heaven and earth, but why couldn't he find that guy? Blocked me? Chapter 2876, The Light Bulb Duo, 1, There was definitely something fishy about this. The demon only needed to think for a moment before he guessed that there was something fishy going on. He thought he hadn't caused any trouble for little Tian, but little Tian had blocked him. He must have done something shameful. With such a connection, the demon began to carefully search for little Tion's whereabouts. He believed that as long as he found little Tion, the truth would be clear. At the same time, Leng Ruoxia's voice was getting clearer and clearer. This made the search for the demon even more intense. "Shuer, are you there?" the demon asked loudly as he searched. Their voices entered the ears of the laws of the world at the same time, causing their hearts to tremble in fear. "Your sister." Was this the rhythm of the male and female leads meeting? What about after they met? Recently, it had fallen in love with idol dramas from another time and space and had often watched them secretly using its authority. It had developed according to its script. It deeply felt that the first thing the male and female protagonists would do when they met was to settle the score with it, the bad witch who had broken up the loving couple. Sob. What should I do? If there was only one person's combat power, it could still bear it, but these two people. They were definitely courting death. No. He would rather die than let these two guys meet now. Although it could stop them for a while, it couldn't stop them forever. There would naturally be a chance to see these two guys in the future, but the future could be discussed in the future. For now, avoiding risks was the top priority. The rules of heaven and earth had the rhythm of a turtle hiding its head. It did not care about what was in front of it and did not care about the future. It even felt that when the little human girl who was born with the chaotic divine body became a real master god, she might forget that it had once separated the two lovebirds. Therefore, at this moment, it did not want the two of them to meet. It believed that time would wash away everything. But now, time was still too short. Therefore, it could only deceive itself and be a coward. This was also because the heaven-earth law did not understand Leng Ruoxia at all. To Leng Ruoxia, hatred was something she could never forget. It was only related to the morning and evening newspapers. From the very beginning, she had no intention of letting go of the laws of the heaven and earth. However, she wasn't sure how she should deal with the laws of heaven and earth. She was even more conflicted after seeing that her true body of the laws of the world was just a ball of lightning. If the laws of the heaven and earth could transform into a human form, she would be able to give the other party a good beating. But now? Would it know pain after hitting this guy? These thoughts kept on running through Leng Ruoxia's mind, causing her to be at a loss for what to do. Hence, at this moment, she really needed the demon to give her some ideas. After all, they were both born in the land of chaos. As for Tsang, Leng Ruoxia truly felt that she should just forget about it. Based on the series of actions since she arrived at the land of chaos, no matter how slow Leng Ruoxia's reaction was, she could tell that the other party would not let her meet the demon so easily. In some aspects, Tsangyi's goal was completely the same as the laws of the world. Leng Ruoxia was well aware of this. Tsang, who was also aware of Leng Ruoxia's thoughts, was extremely calm. In reality, it was also conflicted. Every time it saw that Nyo was sad because of that devilish man, it couldn't wait to catch the devilish man and let him coax Nyo. But now that the two of them really had the chance to meet, it was still a little unwilling in its heart. Thanks, but it couldn't stop Nyo from coming here to find materials just because that devilish man was here. After all, cultivation was more important. It was undeniable that the three of them were all conflicted. As for the demon who had been searching for the whereabouts of the laws of the heaven and earth, he was depressed. After calling out for so long, the laws of heaven and earth didn't even respond. This was enough to prove that this guy was definitely doing something shameful. To be precise, it was something that he couldn't see. After confirming this thought, the demon began to think about what method he could use to force out the laws of heaven and earth. After all these years, the control of the laws of the heaven and earth over the chaotic world was definitely stronger than his. Thus, if the other party did not take the initiative to show himself, he really could not do anything about it. Especially when the other party had blocked him, the difficulty of finding the laws of the heaven and earth had increased greatly. After thinking about it for a long time, there were only two ways to find the laws of the heaven and earth. One was to do an inch-by-inch search, but the weakness of this method was that it was slow. The chaotic world was almost boundless. If they used this method to search and that guy was deliberately hiding, it would take a long time to find him. The second method was to directly destroy this place. At that time, the laws of heaven and earth would definitely appear to stop him. However, he was a little worried if he really used this method. If Shuer and the others really came here, wouldn't they be in trouble? The demon was deeply worried. He was in a difficult position. In the end, out of consideration for the safety of Shuer and the others, he decided to carry out an inch-by-inch search. His decision was exactly what the laws of heaven and earth wanted. The carpet search gave the heaven-earth law the time to feel for the oil. Of course, no one knew about the idea of the laws of the heaven and earth. Leng Ruoxue was in a stalemate with the laws of heaven and earth. On the other side, the demon had already started to search with his divine senses. The demon searched from the periphery bit by bit, not letting go of any corner of the chaotic world. After searching for an unknown amount of time, he suddenly felt that his divine sense was being obstructed. It seemed to be here. Little Tian. I know you're in there, get the hell out. After the demon found the suspicious location, he said directly. Hearing these words, the heaven-earth law could not help but cower. However, it did not go out obediently. In front of Leng Ruoxue, it even displayed a trace of calmness. But in fact, it was thinking of a way to escape. Seeing that the laws of heaven and earth didn't respond for a long time, the demon was enraged. He threatened, Little Tian, if you don't come out now, I'm going to use violence. Your sister. You violent man. What else can you do other than using violence? After hearing the demon's threat, the regulations of heaven and earth could not help but curse in their hearts. However, in order not to let Leng Ruoxue see anything, it remained calm and composed. However, at this moment, a loud bang was heard by Leng Ruoxue and the others. Instantly, the lightning ball formed by the laws of the heaven and earth dimmed. Fuck. He's really going to use violence so soon. The heaven-earth law didn't even need to think to know that it was that damn devilish man who attacked from the outside. How detestable. Was he so impatient just to see his woman? Can't you even wait for such a short time? The regulations of the heaven and earth were furious. As a rule of heaven and earth, it had never experienced the feelings between a man and a woman. Naturally, it could not understand the demon's urgency and sneered at him. It truly felt that this evildoer was a disgrace to chaos lifeforms. How could he do this for a woman? This kind of behavior was really not worth advocating. Chapter 2877, The Light Bulb Duo, 2, Forbidden. It must definitely be banned. The heaven-earth law was roaring in his heart. The demon's attacks from the outside seemed fierce, but in reality, he was not ruthless. After all, Shuer might be inside, and he did not want to hurt her. As for the life and death of the heaven-earth law, he could not be bothered. However, the demon's attack, which was as loud as thunder and as light as raindrops, sounded like thunder to Leng Ruoxue and the others. There's also thunder in the chaos world? The curious Uncle Long finally couldn't help but ask. After asking, his gaze turned to Tsang. However, Azure acted as if he didn't see anything, only lowering his head and playing with his furry little paws. What did it have to do with thunder? Seeing that Senior Azure was ignoring him, Uncle Long felt a little sad. He turned to look at the laws of the world, hoping that Senior Azure would answer his question. Who knew that the laws of heaven and earth would ignore him as well? They continued to jump up and down, as if they were brewing something. Leng Ruoxue could also tell that the laws of heaven and earth seemed to have other thoughts. She immediately set her eyes on the other party. Feeling Leng Ruoxue's intense stare, the regulations of the heaven and earth roared in anger. Little girl, what are you looking at me for? What, you're afraid to look? Leng Ruoxue teased with a smile. No, I'm not afraid. The regulations of the heaven and earth said gloomily, but they couldn't help but wail in their hearts. Sob. Don't look at it. Do not look at it. It was going to run. How was it supposed to run if he kept staring at it like that? Then I'll try my best to look. Len Ruoxue replied immediately after she finished explaining the laws of heaven and earth. The laws of heaven and earth were silent. Your sister. He still had to look hard. Are you going to take responsibility if you break it? It was obvious that Len Ruoxue had no intention of taking responsibility even if she had a bad eye for the laws of heaven and earth. At the same time, the thunder in their ears became louder and louder. Then, the demon's warning was once again transmitted into the hearts of the laws of heaven and earth. Xiao Tian, quickly remove the shield. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. The demon was furious. This time, he was really going to make a move. Who asked little Tian to be so stubborn? In the face of internal and external troubles, the rules of heaven and earth quickly weighed the pros and cons in its heart. In the end, it decided that it should run away as soon as possible. The meeting of this violent man and woman seemed to be unstoppable. With this thought in mind, the regulations of the heaven and earth first sized up the surroundings, then quietly moved back. Following that, it roared loudly, "Evil man, you bastard!" Its feint had successfully attracted the attention of Len Ruoxue and the others. When they regained their senses and looked at the laws of heaven and earth, they could no longer see the shadow of the laws of heaven and earth. At this moment, Evildoer also realized that the shield in front of him seemed to have weakened a lot. Therefore, he effortlessly used the same amount of force to break the shield. Shwa. Looking at Len Ruoxue who was so close to him, the demon could not believe his eyes. At this moment, Len Ruoxue and the others were still searching for the whereabouts of the laws of heaven and earth. When they heard a familiar voice, everyone raised their heads. Freak! Mistress of the dark world! Everyone said in unison. Following that, Len Ruoxue pounced into the demon's arms like a young bird in the forest. The demon also hugged Len Ruoxue tightly, not letting go. Thanks Uncle Long and the others held their breaths, not even daring to breathe. Only Tsang was coldly snorting. Because Niu threw it into Uncle Long's arms after seeing this devilish man, it was quite angry, extremely angry. Uncle Long, who was holding Tsang, could clearly feel the bitter aura that Tsang was constantly emitting. Instantly, he felt like he was holding a hot potato. Originally, he wanted to persuade Tsang that it wasn't easy for Shwa and the Dark Lord to meet, so he shouldn't throw a tantrum. But seeing Tsang like this, he didn't dare to persuade him anymore. If he opened his mouth, he would probably become Senior Tsang's punching bag. Woo, so scary. Uncle Long really wanted to leave Tsang Bubao behind, but he didn't dare to. So he could only silently bear the cold air on Tsang's body and use his eyes to glare at those disloyal guys. How detestable. After Dongfang Yu and the others felt Senior Tsang's anger, they all hid far away. Only he could not escape while holding Tsang. This is too unfair. Uncle Long was a little indignant. In the next second, he walked toward Dongfang Yu and the others with Tsang in his arms. Dongfang Yu and the others were so scared that they quickly dodged and kept warning Uncle Long with their eyes, "Don't come over. Don't come any closer." However, Uncle Long didn't care about that. He carried Tsang Zhuan and ran to a place with many people. Dongfang Yu and the others were so angry that their faces turned black. When they were done, the crowd realized that Shwa and the demon had disappeared. Ah! Are we being abandoned? Uncle Long, who was carrying Tsang, said with a worried expression. It's obvious. Dongfang Yu said unhappily. If this guy hadn't been chasing them with Azure in his arms, they wouldn't have lost sight of Shwa. But now, they were abandoned in the wilderness, with no village in front and no shop behind. Wah! Dongfang Yu really wanted to cry. It's so dangerous here, how can you leave them here? It was obvious that Tsang, the only one who could protect them, was not in a good state. Apart from continuously releasing cold air, Tsang was not willing to do anything else. What should he do? Influenced by Dongfang Yu, everyone was heartbroken. You all, come with me. Just as everyone was heartbroken, a voice that seemed to come from the heavens suddenly entered their ears. It wasn't that the voice was beautiful, it was just that when they were at their most helpless, they heard someone say, "Come with me." That feeling was absolutely incomparable. However, when they looked up and saw that it was an unknown man who had spoken, they were immediately suspicious. Was the other party talking to them? A bad uncle who abducted his little friends? There were too many bad people nowadays, so even a god shouldn't easily believe the words of a stranger. And don't leave with strangers. Who knows who you are? The distrust on everyone's faces made the man quite worried. Everyone, he's not a bad person. Why did she doubt him so much? However, suspicion was suspicion, especially in the land of chaos where there were very few living things. One had to know that Senior Tsang had said that those who could live here were not human. At this moment, they didn't feel that Senior Tsang's words were offensive at all. And without knowing the man's identity, they could forget about leaving with him. I'm not a bad person. Seeing that Uncle Long and the others didn't say anything, but their thoughts were clearly written on their faces, the man could only helplessly say, unfortunately, his words sounded like he was trying to hide something. Uncle Long and the others didn't believe him. Are you even human? Uncle Long asked directly. This question is so difficult to answer. The man pondered. How should he answer to win the favor of Uncle Long and the others and trick them away? No, he wanted them to leave this place with him. Seeing that he didn't answer, Uncle Long and the others immediately understood. Chapter 2878, The Light Bulb Duo, 3, The other party was not human. The appraisal was complete. This time, it was even more impossible for Uncle Long and the others to go with him. If he was someone from the laws of the world, then wouldn't they become a tool for that fellow to threaten Shuai and the demon? The man in deep thought naturally didn't know that Uncle Long and the others had already made up their minds not to go with him. He was even thinking about how to convince these people in front of him. After thinking about it with great difficulty, Uncle Long said before the man could speak, "You're a liar. We won't go with you. So, you can give up on that idea." The man was depressed. He hadn't even said anything yet, okay? How did the mission fail? The unwilling man tried to persuade Uncle Long and the others, but they wouldn't give him a chance. In the end, he was annoyed by the man, so everyone worked together and sent the man back to his hometown. Of course, they didn't know where the man's home was, but there was no doubt that the guy had been kicked away by them. After that, everyone's ears were finally quiet. However, the sorrow that came with it made them feel depressed. "Come with me." Suddenly, Uncle Long and the others heard this and were immediately enraged. "Your sister. Are you done?" He raised his head and saw that it was another unfamiliar man who had spoken. This time, Uncle Long and the others didn't waste any time and were ready to attack. The man's face immediately turned pale and he said in a trembling voice, What are you doing?" "I'm here on the orders of my master to pick you up. How can you treat me like this?" The man who had spoken was unusually indignant. He had thought that this would be a good job to please the future Netherworld Empress, but who knew that he would be beaten up the moment he said a single word. Woo-woo. This was too much of a bully. Which master? Upon hearing this, Uncle Long and the others stopped what they were doing and asked cautiously. "It's the mistress of the dark world that you guys are talking about." "The mistress of the dark world asked me to come and pick you up." The man who was afraid of being beaten up quickly said. "You mean, you're someone sent by the mistress of the dark world?" Uncle Long said warily. Of course." The man nodded. "What evidence do you have?" Uncle Long continued to ask. "This. Do we still need evidence for this?" The man was dumbfounded. "Of course I do. Otherwise, who would know who you are?" Uncle Long said with a look of disdain. "Ah. This is my token." The man had no choice but to take out a black token and show it to Uncle Long and the others to confirm his identity. However, after Uncle Long and the others looked around, they regretfully told the man that this could not prove his identity because they did not recognize the card he took out. With that, the man was completely enraged. He finally knew that running errands was not an easy job. The key was that these people in front of him didn't believe his identity. "I'm really sent by the mistress of the dark world to pick you up." The man was still struggling, but Uncle Long and the others obviously wouldn't believe his one-sided words. He had to be on high alert in the land of chaos. Otherwise, there was a risk of being taken away by bad people at any time. Especially since Azure didn't care, they could only save themselves for safety. "Wait for me, I'll go back and get the evidence." In the end, the rather helpless man could only turn around and leave. Not long after, the man returned. This time, Old Venomous Snake was with him. Seeing Old Viper, Uncle Long and the others burst into tears. Sob. Schwer had not forgotten about them. "Master asked me to come and pick you up," Old Venomous Snake said with a smile. "Then what are we waiting for?" Uncle Long quickly said. Then, without waiting for the man to say anything else, Uncle Long and the others obediently followed them and left. This fact caused the man's grief and indignation to increase. Sob. Why didn't she believe his words and caused him to lose face in front of his friends? The more the man thought about it, the sadder he became. His resentful eyes would occasionally linger on Uncle Long and the others. However, Uncle Long and the others ignored him and asked casually, "Apart from you, did the mistress of the dark world send anyone else to pick us up?" "No, I'm the only one." The man couldn't help but feel flattered to hear the other party speak to him. Fuck. That guy was a liar. Uncle Long and the others cursed in their hearts when they heard this answer. When the man led them to the demon's palace, they looked at the tall buildings that didn't fit in with the desolate land of chaos. Uncle Long and the others were tempted. Should they also build a base here? Of course, he had to get Schweer's approval first. Thanks, however, when they entered the palace, they did not immediately see Schwer. They could understand this. The young couple had not seen each other for a long time and were currently in the midst of their lovey-dovey moment. Of course, they would not invite their own rejections and disturb them. However, Azure didn't care at all. He shouted from within the palace, "Damn demon, quickly return my Nyo. Nyo hasn't married you yet. Don't you dare take advantage of her." Everyone who heard this fell silent. However, Uncle Long and the others were calm, while the evildoer's subordinates were panicking. The other party was causing trouble on their territory. Should they take down the cat? But how could he take it down? The subordinates of the Nether prison had a headache. This cat didn't look like someone to be trifled with, and it didn't fear the majesty of its master at all. How were they supposed to attack? Uncle Long saw the cats struggle, so he pulled someone who looked like the leader aside and talked to him for a while. Suddenly, the leader showed a constipated expression and gave up on the idea of taking down the cat. "Boo-hoo. My lord, it's not that we've failed our duty, but we can't beat this cat." From Uncle Long, the leader learned that this cat was also born in the land of chaos. As such, it must be an important figure that an old man could not afford to offend. Therefore, after weighing his duty and the strength of both sides, he decided to give up and let the cat go. More importantly, Uncle Long had told him that even if he didn't capture the cat, his master wouldn't blame him. In Uncle Long's words, the cat and her master were natural enemies. But aren't cats' greatest enemies supposed to be that? When did it become his master? The leader couldn't figure it out, so he stopped thinking about it. Just as Uncle Dragon had said, her lord didn't move at all after Tsang's roar. To put it bluntly, her lord had ignored the cat's provocation and didn't have time to deal with it. Azure was even more furious at this result. Tsang flew into a rage and wanted to destroy all the buildings here to vent his anger. Leng Ruoxue, who was watching this scene through the light screen from the bangle, could not help but ask worriedly, "Azure is angry. Are we really not going out?" "I'm not going out. If it wants to make a scene, it can. At most, it'll just build a new palace." The demon said disapprovingly. "That's right, sister. We must not let that stupid cat's bad habits die down." Qing Ju, who had suddenly appeared, also interrupted and echoed. At times, he was very willing to join forces with the evildoer to bully that cat. Ah. Alright. Even though Len Ruoxue couldn't bear it, it seemed like she had to obey the majority at this moment. More importantly, she and the evildoer had not seen each other for such a long time, and they did have a lot to talk about. After that, the two of them entered the purple bamboo house. The light bulb Qingju wanted to follow them in but was refused entry. Qingju was furious and glared at the door of the purple bamboo house. With a thought, he moved the dead cat he was talking about in. At the same time, Tsang would also be a good helper to him. One had to admit that Qingju was a fence-sitter. Azure was still happily wandering around outside when it suddenly felt a familiar suction force. It immediately retracted its aura and was pulled into the bracelet by Green Vessel. After taking a glance at Tsang's strength, Green Vessel was very satisfied with its tactfulness and quick reaction. Do you know why I moved you here? Then, Qingju asked with a smirk. I don't know. Tsang pretended to be stupid, but in his heart he was thinking, this guy wouldn't be so kind to let me be a guest in this broken bracelet. Humph. Those who were unaccountably solicitous were either evil or thieves. Tsang became alert and decided that he would not let Green Vessel lead him by the nose. Unfortunately, Green Vessel understood Tsang's thoughts and said directly, my sister and the demon are in the purple bamboo house. I've been refused entry, so I think we can join forces to break in. What do you think? Aren't you the artifact spirit of this place? Is there a place you can't go to? Hearing Green Vessel's words, Azure couldn't help but mock. Your sister, it's not like you don't know that I haven't recovered my strength. Qingju said angrily. This guy is really too detestable. He knew that he couldn't be nice to it, or else this guy would definitely climb all over him. That's true. You're no match for that guy now. But you're too biased. That evil man is also at his peak. You dare to let him in, but don't allow me to come in often. Aren't you afraid that he will destroy your place? You must know that his destructive power is definitely not inferior to mine. Tsang nodded and complained. With Big Sister here, what am I afraid of? Green Vessel said matter-of-factly. The main point was that the demon had always been coming in and out of the bracelet, so the bracelet did not reject him. Therefore, even though he had recovered to his peak, the bracelet still believed that he had achieved it through his own cultivation. However, Tsang was different. This was also the reason why Green Vessel did not stop the demon from entering his territory. Of course, he couldn't let Azure know about this, or else he would say that he was racist. When Tsang heard Qingju's words, he snorted coldly and said, how do you want me to cooperate with you? With you as the main force, we'll kill our way in to protect Big Sister's innocence. Hee hee. If the demon wants to confess his feelings to his sister, he has to go through us first, right? You must know that we're her family. Qingju laughed smugly. Humph. He was definitely going to be the third wheel. Even if the sky collapsed, they could not stop him. Chapter 2879, Devil, Be Honest, 1, It'll be the main force? Stupid bracelet, you're not trying to use me, are you? I'm telling you, I'm not that easy to fool. Hearing Qingju's words, Tsang was on guard. Use you, my ass. This is called cooperation. Do you understand cooperation? You uncultured damn cat. Qingju angrily replied. Since we're working together, why can't you be the main force? Don't forget, this is your territory. Azure had a suspicious look on his face. He wasn't stupid and wouldn't let others use him for no reason. I want to be the main force, but can I beat that evildoer? Qingju said angrily. Even though this was his territory, he really did not have the confidence to deal with the evil man here. Otherwise, he would not have brought this damn cat in to annoy him. That's true. Little Ruo, come and call me big brother. Seeing that Green Vessel had finally admitted that he was weak, Azure was happy. If he didn't bully this guy now, he wouldn't have the chance to do so when he recovered his strength. This was why Tsang didn't want to let go of such a good opportunity. Your sister, my name is Qing Ju, not little Ruo. Green Vessel roared in anger when he saw that Chaos had given him a name. I know. Little Ruo is a nickname I gave you because you're weak. Ha ha ha. After Tsang finished speaking, he laughed out loud, causing Qing Ju's small body to tremble in anger. The fire in his heart was also bursting out. Endure. He had to endure. It was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Sooner or later, he would take care of this fellow. Qing Ju secretly swore and set a big goal for himself, which was to teach this damn cat a good lesson one day. Then, he took a few deep breaths. Silly cat, do you still want to work with me? You bastard. Time was tight, and the mission was heavy, but this damn cat still had the time to mess with him. This was really infuriating. Of course, we'll cooperate. Tsang smiled. Since he had come in, he naturally couldn't return empty-handed, so he had to destroy it. Hee hee. He must be dreaming if he thought that he could be intimate with Nyo so easily. After making up their minds, Tsang and Green Vessel smiled as if they understood each other. The man and beast carefully headed toward the purple bamboo house. He quietly moved to the door of the purple bamboo house and gave Tsang a look. Tsang understood and then showed his little claws, grabbing towards the door with a swoosh. 5 long claw marks were left on the door, but it was still intact. Seeing this scene, Green Vessel was filled with grief and indignation. He could not bear it anymore and roared, "You idiot, who told you to scratch? Now that you've scratched the door like this, the door still doesn't open." Qing Ju was filled with hatred. This door was made by the old master back then, and it definitely had commemorative significance. Now, there were 5 claw marks on it. Just thinking about it made him so angry. However, facing Green Vessel's rage, Tsang didn't take it to heart. If the old doesn't go, the new won't come. It's just a door, what's the big deal? After saying this, Azure struck out with its claws. The door glowed with a blinding light. As its claws rose and fell, the originally intact door was finally destroyed. Look, it's done. Tsang Ji said proudly. As for Qing Ju, he looked at the door that was covered in claw marks on the ground and his heart bled. At this moment, he was very sure that this silly cat was doing this on purpose. Did she really think that she was a cat after transforming into a cat for a long time? That silly cat didn't need to scratch at all, and she wouldn't break the door and just knock it open, but now. Qing Ju wanted to cry but had no tears. He had definitely invited a cat into the house. In an instant, he was filled with regret. The sound of the door falling to the ground had also alerted Leng Ruoxue and the demon inside the purple bamboo house. When the two of them came out and saw the dead door, they looked at each other. Leng Ruoxue was helpless, but the demon was a little angry. How detestable. Can't these two guys be a little more obedient? Did she have to cause trouble for him? Thanks, who did this? The demon asked despite knowing the answer. It wasn't me, Azure replied with a smile. It wasn't me either. Seeing that Tsang did not admit it, Green Vessel would not admit it either. Your sister. He had already miscalculated and naturally didn't intend to be Tsang's scapegoat. You don't want to admit? Don't worry, just stretch out your hands and claws and compare them. The demon was so angry that he laughed, but he still said with a straight face. On what basis? Azure asked indifferently. Just because you're all suspects. The demon said matter-of-factly. You're also a suspect. Azure replied with a smile. What suspicion do I have? The demon asked curiously. You came out from inside, so it's possible that you opened the door, so you're suspicious. Azure analyzed with a serious face. In any case, it was determined to die. Schwer, did you see that? This is what it means to be a thief crying thief. After hearing Tsang's words, the evildoer turned to Leng Ruoxue and said calmly. You bastard. You're the thief. Your whole family is a thief. Before Len Ruoshua could react, Song roared in anger. My family includes you. The demon smiled faintly. Who said that? When did I become your family? Azure was stunned and asked in confusion. Shuar is my woman and you're her beastie. Tell me, are you considered my family? The demon asked with a smile. No, Nyo hasn't married you yet. Don't try to get close to me. Azure said unhappily. This guy was really too shameless, wanting to make connections just like this. That's only a matter of time. The demon was full of confidence. His grandfather and the others had long acknowledged his status, so now he was only lacking a title. Who said that? She raised her eyebrows, obviously trying to find fault. What, you still want to object? The demon asked calmly. I want to object, Nyo cannot marry you. Azure said with a serious expression. It doesn't matter, I'll just marry her. The demon countered every move, not taking Sung's words seriously at all. That guy was nothing to be afraid of. You can't marry Nyo either. Sung roared. This damn evil man was so shameless. Didn't you see that her family didn't agree? Then who can I marry? Blinking his eyes, the demon shamelessly asked. Hearing this, Len Ruoshua couldn't help but hold back her laughter. She truly felt that how could a demon be so cute? Ha ha ha. The evildoer who said this was really cute. Len Ruokshua's eyes were brimming with tears as she looked at the evildoer. Sensing her gaze, the evildoer turned back to look at Shuar. In an instant, the entire space was filled with gentleness and sweetness, and no one could interfere between the two of them. Sung, who also saw this scene, was furious. You bastard! These two scoundrels actually flirted with each other in front of him. They were really too detestable. Sung was going crazy. He was even more displeased with the demon. In short, with it around, it would be a dream for the evildoer to successfully be together with Nyo. Chapter 2880, Devil, Be Honest. 2. You can marry whoever you want. After a long time, the flustered and exasperated Sung Kai roared. I love to marry Shuar. The demon laughed in an extremely lecherous manner. Nyo can't. Azure roared, so angry that all the fur on his body stood up. Give me a reason, the demon said in a good-tempered manner. You're already living with someone, what right do you have to marry Nyo? Sung had an idea and remembered what Mu Li had said before. He used it at the last minute. Who am I cohabiting with? The demon was confused. This was definitely slander. Sob. Shuar, I've been wronged. He looked at Len Ruoshua pitifully, his devilish face full of grievances. With Jing Tsang's reminder, Len Ruoshua suddenly recalled that there was such a thing. She deliberately put on a serious expression and asked, Evildoer, be honest. Although Len Ruoshua completely trusted the evildoer, it didn't seem too bad to be able to watch him suffer. As expected, the moment Len Ruoshua said that, the demon was completely dumbfounded. You bastard! Who was he cohabitating with? Why didn't he know about it? Shuar, this is a very serious matter, so we can't just talk about it, understand? In particular, he couldn't be wronged. As the evildoer involved, he strongly demanded that his innocence be cleared. Len Ruoshua, on the other hand, said with a look of righteousness, I'm not talking nonsense. The witness said it himself. Right. We have witnesses. You're unwilling to be lonely and cohabited with someone else, humph. You want to marry Shuar like this? You can dream on. Seeing that Len Ruoshua was on his side, Tsang tried his best to hit her when she was down. There's a witness who said that I'm cohabiting with someone. Who was the witness? I request to question the witness. When a demon was angry, the consequences would be very serious. In his heart, he had already cut the witness who had wronged him into 8 pieces. Hee. The witness was Mu Li. He's your confidant, so you have nothing to say now. With 2 evil laughs, Song betrayed Mu Li without hesitation. At the same time, Mu Li, who was in the divine realm, suddenly felt a chill all over his body, as if something terrifying was about to happen. However, he still didn't realize that his words had been maliciously twisted by Azure, and now he had been betrayed. And it was sold quite thoroughly. Sure enough, Song's provocation was quite successful. The evildoer was completely enraged and secretly complained, "What's your confidant?" As expected, he was unreliable. Now, they all knew that they had wronged him. After that, the demon suppressed his anger and asked, "What did he say?" "You can ask him what he said." "Why are you asking me?" Azure smiled and didn't intend to answer this question. It wasn't that stupid. If this damn monster in front of him knew what Mu Li said and explained it to him, he would have nothing to do with it. Seeing that Song refused to talk about it, the demon could only turn to Leng Ruoxue and said pitifully, "Shuai, they've all wronged me. I'm not cohabiting with anyone." This. Looking at the evildoer's aggrieved expression, Leng Ruoxue did not know how to react. Was it only by getting angry that she could reflect her feelings as the person involved? However, the current situation was that she was not angry. On the contrary, when she saw the little evildoer's aggrieved look, she felt quite loving. Even at this moment, Leng Ruoxue had a wicked thought. In order to see this demon's little face, she must not reveal who her cohabitate was no matter what, even though she was very curious about who that Xiao Tian was. With such a thought in mind, Leng Ruoxue fell silent. Thanks when the demon saw that Leng Ruoxue was silent, he thought that she was really angry. He was instantly flustered. Damn it! Mu Li, come out! The demon called out to Mu Li in his heart, but unfortunately, Mu Li did not give him any response. Instantly, he felt that Mu Li was guilty. How detestable! Mu Li was indeed talking nonsense. But the point was, who was his cohabiting partner? This had to be clarified first. However, Mu Li didn't respond. The demon didn't know who to ask for a while. Would Uncle Long and the others know? If she knew, would she tell him? The demon's mind turned quickly as he thought about who he could get all this information from. He didn't know why, but he felt that something was wrong. He raised his head and looked at Shuai, but Shuai still didn't speak. Seeing this, the demon was even more uncertain. Woo, Shuai, don't be like this. He had really been wronged. However, Leng Ruoxue had no idea what the evildoer was thinking. She was still in high spirits as she watched the evildoer's bewilderment. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that the evildoer's current appearance was cute. However, when she saw the evildoer's aggrieved expression that was on the verge of tears, she deeply felt that she was a little detestable. How could he have such a bad taste? But he couldn't control it. What to do? AI. Sighing lightly, Leng Ruoxue decided to leave first. Otherwise, the demon would be frightened to death. With that thought in mind, she turned around and walked back to the purple bamboo house. In this way, it really frightened the demon. Shuai, don't go. The demon's little heart trembled. He really felt that Shuai was angry. Sob. What should I do? Damn it. It was all Mu Li's injustice, and he couldn't defend himself. More importantly, he had no idea what Mu Li was talking about. He wanted to chase Shuai back to her room. He was blocked by Green Vessel and Azure again. Nyo's sad, you scum, don't disturb her. Song's face was filled with hatred as he said righteously. D scumbag? Was he talking about him? The demon was a little dumbfounded. Which part of him was scum? He was clearly a good man, all right. He was obedient to his wife. She knew how to act coquettishly, how to act cute, and how to take a beating. He never looked at other women, nor did he talk to strange women. Pure mind and body, devoted to love and so on, where could one find such a perfect man? Thinking of these merits of his, even the evildoer almost fell in love with himself. But now, he was actually called a scumbag by a cat. You bastard. Which part of him was scum? The demon glared at Azure and roared, "Silly cat, tell me clearly, how am I scum? If you don't explain it clearly, I won't let you off today. You didn't want to be lonely and cohabited with someone else. That goes without saying." Azure laughed and said proudly. "Ugh." The demon blinked his eyes and then roared, "Your sister. I've been wronged. Who cares if you're innocent or not? You're living with someone else anyway." Azure laughed. "So, you also want to wrong me?" The demon understood that cohabitation was the key. The silly cat in front of him didn't care whether he was wronged or not. "Do I need to wrong you?" When Azure heard this, he grinned. "I need it." The demon was certain that this fellow had been trying to destroy his relationship with Schwaer. So, once he got the chance, he would definitely bite on it and not let go. Oh. This was a cat's habit. Chapter 2881, Devil, Be Honest, 3, You're also maligning me. Cold couldn't help but reveal an aggrieved expression when he heard evildoer's words. "Stupid cat, I don't care what you say. Tell me, what did Muli tell you?" The demon continued to ask. If he didn't understand the whole story, he felt that no matter how he explained it, it would be a little unclear. That damn Muli didn't dare to respond to his call. Humph. This was definitely a sign of a guilty conscience. The demon convicted Muli. As for the unlucky Muli, he had no idea what he was about to face because he was already in a terrible fix. Looking at the dark purple ball of lightning that kept jumping in front of him, Muli had a rhythm that made him want to die. Fuck. How did this guy come all the way to the divine realm? Didn't his lord say that it didn't dare to come to the divine realm? And after he came, little Tian actually came to find him directly, which made him feel a little worried. He really wanted to play dead. What to do? Muli, who felt that his good days were coming to an end, forced out an ugly smile and said unwillingly, "Little Tian, why are you here?" "I missed you, so I came to see you." The sound of the laws of heaven and earth came from the lightning ball. At first glance, it sounded like the joy of not seeing an old friend so again in many years, but in fact, the laws of heaven and earth were so nervous that their hearts were trembling. It was afraid that the violent man and woman would find out that it had left the chaotic world. Otherwise, once they caught it, its good days would be gone forever. AI. He had a home he couldn't go back to now. Therefore, it could only hide in the violent woman's territory. Anyway, that woman wouldn't be back for a while, and she wouldn't know that it was in her house. Hee hee. Didn't humans say that the most dangerous place was also the safest place? Today, it was here to verify the truth of this sentence, and what made it happy was that it actually saw its good friend here. This was a pleasant surprise for it. Unfortunately, although it was happy to see Muli, Muli felt that a disaster was coming. Sob. He really wanted to go home. But now that he had been caught by Xiaotian, could he go back? Especially now that she said she missed him and came to see him. Could he tell her not to come and see him? He didn't dare to. He was not his master, so he did not dare to offend the rules of heaven and earth. "Shaoli, don't you miss me?" Seeing that Muli had not answered him for a long time, the heaven-earth law could not help but ask. Yes, yes. Muli wanted to cry but had no tears. At this time, Minga, who had been watching their interaction, quietly poked Muli and asked in a low voice, "Who is this?" "It is the law of the world," Muli explained. Upon hearing this, Ming Ji and the others' mouths were agape in disbelief, and their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The laws of heaven and earth? The legendary rules of land inheritance, the rules of heaven and earth that could decide their fate, looked like this? Minga and the others suddenly felt a little disappointed. How could the laws of heaven and earth be a ball? Wasn't this an image that didn't conform to the laws of heaven and earth? However, since the other party was such in existence, he obviously couldn't offend him. Therefore, in the next second, as if he was half a master, Minga enthusiastically said to the laws of heaven and earth, "Your Excellency, rules of heaven and earth. Since you've come to visit the city lord of Muley City, please stay here for a few more days. As soon as he said that, Minga felt a pair of sharp eyes shooting at him, which made him feel very confused. Yes, don't worry. I'll stay here for a few more days. The regulations of heaven and earth were very happy to hear Ming Ji's words. They also felt that this little guy had good eyes and knew its difficulties. Hee. Of course, it would stay for a few more days. It had to stay until Len Ruoxue left the primal chaos world. Otherwise, it wouldn't even dare to return home. AI. Look at the way he was living. He was really so cowardly. However, in the following days, the heaven-earth law felt an unprecedented joy. Because Ming Ji and the others, who didn't know the truth, respected it very much. Not only did they ask about its warmth, but after knowing that it liked to listen to stories, they also told it good stories every day. As time went by, the rules of heaven and earth felt more and more nourished. With Minga and the others' flattery, Mu Li was completely liberated. In this way, he would not hold a grudge against Ming Ji for letting the laws of heaven and earth settle down. Who asked him to share the attention of the laws of the world with him? However, he still had to be on guard against the sudden appearance of the laws of heaven and earth from time to time. Thus, he still lived in fear. However, the evildoer had always been in an abyss of suffering. Shuai was ignoring him, and he wanted to see Shuai but was blocked. This was simply driving him crazy. You bastard! When would such days end? In the end, the evildoer could not take it anymore and finally decided to get Green Vessel to send him out. Thanks. When he heard this request, Green Vessel was 200% willing to fulfill it. After the demon went out, he had the idea of getting Azure out as well. Tsung saw through Green Vessel's thoughts and sneered, "What, do you want to kill the cat after you're done?" Hey! It's good that you know. Qing Ju didn't care that his thoughts were seen through by Tsung and laughed very proudly. You broken bracelet, you'll get retribution if you do this, you know? Or do you not want to work with me in the future? I'm telling you, if you dare to send me out, I'll join hands with that demonic man. Tsung threatened. Its threat made Green Vessel hesitate. It was difficult to deal with one of these two guys. If they really joined forces, he would definitely be the one to suffer. With this thought in mind, the tactful Green Vessel had no choice but to give up the idea of killing the cat after it was done grinding and let it continue to stay in the bracelet and be an eyesore. After the demon went out, his whole body was emitting cold air, which scared his subordinates so much that they didn't even dare to breathe. Uncle Long and the others were also silent like cicadas in winter. If they could avoid the powerful weapon of the 10,000-year-old iceberg, they would try their best to avoid it. Otherwise, if they were frozen to death, they would have no place to cry. However, they couldn't figure it out either. Didn't people say that absence makes the heart grow fonder? This pair of little lovers had not seen each other for so long, and it was the time for them to be deeply in love with each other, so why was the demon's reaction so fickle? Uncle Long and the others didn't understand, so they wanted to figure it out. However, none of them dared to stand out. After a careful discussion, everyone unanimously decided to let Ice Spirit take care of the Dark Mistress. Ice Spirit was so depressed that her hair almost turned white. What the hell is this? He wasn't familiar with that person, and they hadn't even spoken a word to this day, yet he directly asked him to inquire about such private information. This was definitely a trap. However, Ice Spirit felt that it was time for him to do something for the little girl when he saw everyone's anticipation. So, he braced himself and went to find the demon. The demon was in a bad mood, but he still welcomed Ice Soul. Ice Soul and the demon sat down face to face, but she didn't know what to say. I've long heard of the Dark Master's name. It's my honor to meet you today. After thinking for a long time, Ice Spirit finally decided on an opening remark. The demon didn't say anything after hearing this. He waited for the rest. Seeing that the other party did not respond and only kept releasing cold air, Ice Spirit obviously lost his confidence. This cold chi was definitely not of the same family as his ice attribute. That. Could he withdraw? Ice Spirit broke out in a cold sweat under the pressure of the monster. He felt unprecedented pressure. At this moment, the demon said indifferently, "If you have something to say, just say it." "Ah. Can't you just tell me the truth?" If you were to say it directly, would that be considered as prying into the mistress' privacy? Would he be killed by the mistress of the dark world in a fit of anger? These thoughts flashed through Ice Soul's mind. After thinking about it, Ice Spirit decided to go all out. Therefore, at the next moment, he said without hesitation, "I want to ask on behalf of everyone, what's wrong with the mistress of the dark world and Schwer? We're very worried about you." He was worried that his life would be in danger at any moment. "One of my subordinates wrongly accused me of cohabiting with someone, so Schwer is angry with me." Miraculously, the evildoer was very cooperative and spoke of his troubles. In fact, he had long wanted to find someone to talk to, but he was a little embarrassed, so he had been annoyed until now. Ah! What kind of subordinate was this? How could he do such a thing? He's really too much. Ice Spirit said angrily. He absolutely hated the betrayal of his subordinates. In addition, he was not present when Mu Li told him about this. Therefore, he did not know the truth. He could only stand on the side of the demon and fight against the traitor together. Hearing his words, the demon felt even more wronged and asked tentatively, "Do you know what he said?" "What?" Ice Spirit blinked her eyes in confusion when she heard the mistress of the dark world's question. Why did she ask him? Should he know? It seems like you haven't heard about it. Seeing Ice Spirit's reaction, the evil true form said, "Mistress of the dark world, not only have I not heard of it, but I also don't know the subordinate who said this." Ice Spirit reminded. "Mu Li told me. He's been living in Demon City for several years." The demon said with an expression that said, "You definitely know him." "He said that?" "That's impossible, right?" Ice Spirit didn't believe that the Overlord would slander the mistress of the dark world. I can't contact him now, and I can't confirm what he said." "I thought you would know." The demon was disappointed. "I don't know about this, but Uncle Long and the others should have heard of it, right? Why don't I go ask them?" Ice Spirit wasn't stupid. He understood what the demon was implying, so he took the bait. "Then I'll have to trouble you." The demon was naturally happy to see that the other party was so understanding. In fact, he had thought about asking Uncle Long and the others personally, but he was afraid that they would not dare to tell him the truth. "It's no trouble at all," Ice Spirit said with a smile and left. After that, he went to find Uncle Long and the others. After everyone heard the whole story, they immediately sympathized with the evildoer. Uncle Long even sighed, "The Dark Lord's path of pursuing his wife is a long and arduous one." Chapter 2882, This is what you call efficiency. 1. Everyone understood Uncle Long's words, but Ice Spirit didn't, so he could only look at everyone with a big question mark on his face and wait for answers. However, after waiting for a long time, everyone was still immersed in their own thoughts. No one had considered the existence of a muddle-headed person like him. Finally, Ice Soul, who could not bear it any longer, pointed at the crowd and said, "Who can tell me what's going on?" If he made it clear, he could reply to the mistress of the dark world. Ice Spirit was a little anxious. It was not a good job to be a peacemaker. These bad guys had pushed this task to him but did not give him enough information in case of emergencies. They were so irresponsible. Ice Spirit was so angry that cold air was emitted from his body. Everyone was so scared that they could not help but move away to avoid being frozen by his sudden cold air. After staying at a safe distance, they all winked at Uncle Long, asking him to explain to Ice Soul. The helpless Uncle Long glared at the crowd and sighed. He said to Ice Spirit, "Senior, this involves Schweier's beastie and the Master of the Dark World fighting for favor, so I can't explain it in a few words." "It's okay. You can tell me slowly. I have all the time in the world," Ice Spirit said with a smile. "Ah. All right. Uncle Long had no choice but to report everything he knew to Ice Soul. Ice Spirit frowned and asked with uncertainty, according to what you're saying, the mistress of the Dark World's love life is bound to be filled with disasters. You can say that Shuai'er's beasts love to fight for her favor. In their hearts, Mistress Dark is definitely their biggest enemy. So, it's fine when there's a big problem. Everyone is busy fighting against the outside world and they don't have the time to bully Mistress Dark. But during peaceful times, the beasts will definitely not let Mistress Dark take advantage of Shuai'er so easily. Uncle Long explained. Yup. This is also because most of Shuai'er's beasts are in closed-door cultivation, otherwise it would be even more lively. After Uncle Long finished speaking, the Great Elder of the Craftsmen's Guild also added. Ah. Why do these beasts even care about their master's personal affairs? Ice Spirit was speechless. Wasn't he being too nosy? Why not? In the hearts of the beasts, their master was their private property. How could they let others take advantage of them? AI. It's only because the mistress of the Dark World's strength is unpredictable that those beasts more or less know how to restrain themselves. If it were anyone else, I'm afraid they would be bullied until not even their bones are left. The first blacksmith elder sighed. Poor mistress of the Dark World, why is it so difficult to get a wife? Ice Spirit also sympathized with them. In their Qilin clan, as long as the Qilin clan liked each other, their parents would not care. So when he first heard that a beast wanted to care about its master's relationship, he found it unbelievable. AI. Who said it wasn't he? However, most of the beasts were still fine, the most difficult one was probably Tsang. I originally thought that Shuai'er's act of being separated by the laws of heaven and earth had already made Senior Tsang realize the importance of the Dark Mistress to Shuai'er. Unfortunately, even though he realized it, he still stirred up trouble. Uncle Long said helplessly. There's also Qing Ju. That little fellow isn't content with his lot either. The first elder of the blacksmiths continued. AI. Ice Spirit sighed and asked, then what's the situation with the rumor that the mistress of the Dark World is living with someone else? Did the city lord of Muley City really say that? Cough cough. Uncle Long coughed twice and said with a troubled expression, Senior Azure warned us not to speak of this matter. In other words, he didn't want the Dark Lord to know. It's fine to tell me. Ice Spirit said. Then you can't tell the Dark Lord. Uncle Long looked around vigilantly and whispered. Thanks, don't worry, I promise I won't tell him. Ice Spirit said seriously. At the same time, he couldn't help but think that it was none of his business if the other party had heard it. Ice Spirit believed that the mistress of the Dark World might be eavesdropping on their conversation. It turned out that the Ice Spirit was the truth. The demon was really eavesdropping. It was mainly because he was too eager to know the answer. When he heard from Uncle Long that he was not allowed to tell him, the demon couldn't help but think that it was a close call. Fortunately, he didn't foolishly ask himself. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would have to use violence to get the answer he wanted. After that, the demon pricked up his ears and listened carefully. At this moment, Uncle Long also waved at Bingpa. Bingpa also extended her head and whispered to Uncle Long. After that, Bingpa was shocked and said in disbelief, the city lord of Muley City only said that Mistress Dark and Little Tian have been living in the chaotic world for a few years. He didn't say anything about cohabiting. I really don't. However, it's a big problem to live there for a few years. Uncle Long said carefully. Ah. What do we do now? Ice Spirit thought about it and agreed. Especially when someone with ulterior motives deliberately played dirty tricks on him, he was afraid that even if nothing happened, he could still cause some trouble. Now, he sympathized with the evildoer even more. Cold mix. Just as Uncle Long was about to reply, an angry voice suddenly interrupted. Everyone's heart trembled when they heard this. Then, everyone saw the great mistress of the Dark World appear in front of them like a gust of wind, her face dark. Uncle Long and the others looked at the infuriated evildoer and immediately became as obedient as primary school students. They all looked at the mistress of the dark world with silly smiles on their faces. They didn't say anything. It was the mistress of the dark world who heard it. Everyone shirked all responsibility in their hearts, but the demon didn't pay them any attention. He directly shouted into the void, "Song, you damn cat, get out here. Schwa I'm innocent. Don't you believe that damn cat?" The demon shouted a few times, but no one responded. At the same time, Len Ruoxue, who was in the purple bamboo house, felt that she had heard the demon's voice and walked out of the house. As soon as she came out, Song and Qing Ju wrapped themselves around her, hugging her legs and hugging her in their arms. Upon seeing this, Len Ruoxue could only carry the two little fellows and said, "The demon seems to be calling me." "No, I didn't. Girl, you've heard wrong," Song immediately said, and then gave Qing Ju a warning look. Qing Ju shuddered and nodded, "Sister, you really misheard." Woo! Qing Ju was so sad, a single misstep would cause eternal hatred. He had mistakenly entered this cat's pirate ship and couldn't get out no matter what. "It doesn't matter." "Well, no, once we go out and take a look," Len Ruoxue said with a smile. Don't think that she didn't know what these two little fellows were up to. She just didn't want to expose them. Moreover, she felt that she should also go out. Otherwise, the demon outside would be even more restless. Len Ruoxue felt a little guilty because of her own bad taste. However, she still had to clarify the matter of them living together. Besides, she also wanted to know who Xiaotian was. Chapter 2883, This is what you call efficiency. 2. This person could actually stay with the demon in the land of chaos. The relationship between the two must be extraordinary. Perhaps she really was his potential love rival. Although she believed that the evildoer would not betray her, in these days, the firepower of a mistress was quite powerful, so she had to be careful. The best way was to strangle San in the cradle, so that she didn't dare to have any thoughts. With this thought in mind, Len Ruoxue consoled Green Vessel for a while before leaving the bracelet with Azure in her arms. The moment the demon saw Len Ruoxue, he immediately pounced forward to hug her. However, he was blocked by Len Ruoxue's hand. Schwer, seeing how Len Ruoxue was treating him, the demon was heartbroken. "Let's make things clear," Len Ruoxue said calmly. "Schwer, I'm innocent," the demon said hurriedly. When Uncle Long and the others heard his words, they were hesitating whether they should retreat immediately. Otherwise, it would be bad if they saw something they shouldn't see when there was domestic violence. To put it bluntly, Uncle Long and the others were terrified. The firepower of the three in front of them was too strong for them to withstand. If they stayed here, they might be turned into cannon fodder at any time, so retreating was the safest choice. However, as they wanted to retreat, they couldn't help but want to enjoy the gossip. He was conflicted. He was extremely conflicted. He was extremely conflicted. Just as he was hesitating whether to leave or not, Len Ruoxue asked, "Who wronged you?" "That's right, who wronged you?" Azure also laughed evilly. Hee. This demonic man would never be able to clear his name no matter where he jumped. Cohabitation is cohabitation, what's the point of quibbling? With it around, there was no need to explain. "This damn cat." The furious demon pointed at Sung and shouted. "How did it wrong you?" Len Ruoxue put on an extremely serious expression and asked in confusion. "Right, how did I wrong you?" "Evil man, don't slander me, or I'll sue you." Azure furiously waved its furry little claws. "You're slandering me for cohabiting with someone, and you still won't admit it?" Cold's argument was within Evil's expectations. So, he calmly pointed out this fact that everyone already knew, but his heart was about to explode. "Don't tell me you're not cohabiting with anyone. This is what your Muli city lord said personally. That guy is your trusted aide, right? Did he betray you?" Azure laughed as he spoke with reason. "He didn't betray me, but what he said and what you understand are definitely not the same," the demon explained. "Oh, really? But he said that you've been living here with someone for a few years. Isn't living here for a few years considered cohabitation? Azure asked with a smile. Of course not. The evil fire roared and then looked at Leng Ruoxue. Shuer, don't listen to their nonsense. Although Xiao Tian and I have been living here for a few years, we are definitely not cohabiting. Who's little Tian? Leng Ruoxue asked calmly. Little Tian is the law of heaven and earth. The demon replied in a daze. He couldn't help but think to himself, didn't he say that? The evildoer, who was angered by Tsang, suddenly remembered that he didn't explain the identity of the legendary cohabiting partner. This was really not right. Miscalculated. It was really a mistake. If he had told Shuer about little Tian's identity earlier, Shuer would definitely not have misunderstood. Thanks, demon's thought process was perfect. He thought that once Shuer found out about little Tian's identity, she would understand that Tsang had wrongly accused him. However, he did not expect that Leng Ruoxue would not only not be at ease when she heard that the rule of the heaven and earth was little Tian, but she even frowned. This gave the evildoer an ominous feeling. This wasn't right. It shouldn't be like this. Just as the demon was about to say something to explain, Leng Ruoxue said, no wonder it's trying to stop us from meeting. What? What was the meaning of this? The demon was dumbfounded. Uncle Long and the others were also dumbfounded. Could it be that women like to let their thoughts run wild? Uncle Long and the others would never think that this monster had any ideas about the rules of heaven and earth, but whether the rules of heaven and earth had any ideas about the Dark Lord, they would not know. So in fact, they had some doubts. Their eyes involuntarily drifted to the evildoer. Everyone could not help but sigh. The mistress of the dark world was truly a rare, one-of-kind, peerless beauty. No wonder even the laws of the world were tempted. It had to be said that the plot in everyone's minds was powerful. However, the demon was extremely depressed. He could clearly feel that the way Uncle Long and the others looked at him had changed from sympathy to inquiry. It was as if he had really done something shameful. Shuer, it's stopping us from meeting. It definitely doesn't have any thoughts about me. Believe me. Seeing this, the demon could only explain. TSK. Who would believe this? It's good to deceive silly boys. Tsang replied without waiting for Leng Ruoxue's reply. Instantly, the demon was angered. You shut up. The evil fire roared. Tsang's debt would be settled later, but now he had to clear his own name. Girl, look at him, he's angry from embarrassment, right? These are all signs that I've predicted correctly. Cold smiled evilly and ignored evildoer's words as he continued to provoke him. The demon was extremely angry. Although he wanted to cut Tsang the University into 8 pieces, he did not want Shuer to think that he was killing a cat to silence her. Hence, after taking a few deep breaths, he suppressed the burning anger in his heart and said to Leng Ruoxue pitifully, Shuer, don't you believe me? The laws of heaven and earth are female? Leng Ruoxue gave an irrelevant answer. Ah. That guy doesn't have a gender. The evildoer was stunned for a moment before he replied truthfully. Can be male or female. This is even more difficult to handle. Leng Ruoxue seemed to be talking to herself. Shuer, what are you saying? The demon didn't understand, his handsome face was full of question marks. I said it's too dangerous to be a man or a woman. Leng Ruoxue said with a serious expression. Then, she suddenly reached out and touched the evildoer's face, taking advantage of him. She asked, tell me, did it take advantage of you? No, definitely not. Hearing this, the evildoer quickly raised his hand and promised. However, he could not understand what Shuer was thinking. Did she trust him? You still don't believe me? The demon was quite uncertain. He truly felt that after not seeing her for a few years, Shuer seemed to have become a little hard to grasp. Not even a little bit. Leng Ruoxue confirmed. It really didn't. It likes Mu Li. In order to clear his name, the demon did not hesitate to betray his own subordinates. When they suddenly heard gossip again, Uncle Long and the others couldn't help but widen their eyes and drop their jaws. Was this a love affair? This was big news. However, since the laws of heaven and earth liked Mu Li, why did he go to the immortal realm? This didn't seem like the attitude of a winner. Chapter 2884, This is what you call efficiency. 3. Uncle Long and the others' imaginations were already so strong that they couldn't be any stronger. Fortunately, the demon didn't know how to read minds, and Mu Li wasn't there. Otherwise, these two would be depressed to death. Len Ruoxue was also rather surprised by the demon's words. However, she then asked suspiciously, then why don't you fulfill their wish? The demon was helpless. The regulations of heaven and earth were not human, so how could they help? Moreover, when Mu Li saw the rules of the heaven and earth, he was like a mouse seeing a cat. He absolutely had no love for the rules of the heaven and earth. He couldn't just drive the duck to the frame, right? Mu Li is not interested in little Tian. Sighing lightly, the evildoer satisfied everyone's gossiping spirit. So that was how it was. From the looks of it, this was the one-sided wish of the laws of the world. However, he couldn't encourage the idea that he didn't want others to get love just because he didn't have a suitable relationship. Uncle Long and the others continued to imagine and felt sympathy for the demon. As for the evildoer, he could feel that the way Uncle Long and the others looked at him had changed once again. This time, he had no strength to complain, nor did he want to find out why their gazes had changed. He only wanted Shuai to quickly understand that she had been wronged. In reality, how could Len Ruoxue not understand that the evildoer was wrongly accused? But when she thought about how the laws of heaven and earth had not only sent the evildoer back to the Nine Nether prison, but also prevented them from meeting even when she had arrived in the land of chaos, she was filled with anger. Where are the laws of the world hiding? I'm going to teach it a lesson. After a long time, Len Ruoxue finally spoke angrily. Let's go find it together. In fact, I've lived here for so many years just to make things difficult for it. Seeing that Shuai was no longer angry, the demon quickly explained. Why didn't you say so before? Len Ruoxue rebuked. What I want to say is, if there's a chance. The demon felt wronged. He then looked at Shuai and said carefully, Shuai, you believe me, right? Did I say I don't believe you? Blinking her eyes, Len Ruoxue laughed evilly. Ah! The demon was depressed again. Could it be that he had imagined Shuai getting angry? Shuai was not angry at all. This fact made the demon rather worried, because he suddenly realized that after not seeing her for a few years, Shuai seemed to have learned bad things. Woo! And his pure, beautiful, and cute Shuai. After being depressed for a while, the evildoer looked at Len Ruoxue with hidden bitterness and said coyly, Shuai, you've misunderstood me. You have to make it up to me. Compensate you my ass, girl, are you forgiving him so quickly? I'm so disappointed. Tsang rushed to say, and even looked at Len Ruoxue with disappointment and sadness in his big watery eyes. Len Ruoxue touched Tsang Rao's soft fur helplessly and sighed in her heart. Let's stop while we're ahead. Don't be angry with this freak anymore. Her heart ached when she saw the demon looking a little haggard. Sensing Len Ruoxue's thoughts, Tsang kept quiet. However, he decided to be the third wheel to the end. He definitely couldn't let this damn evildoer get his way with Nyo's soft tofu. Humph. Seeing that Tsang had stopped, Len Ruoxue pulled the demon over and said, let's go find the laws of heaven and earth to settle the score. Yes, but Shuai, shouldn't you compensate me for my mental loss before you settle the score with it? The demon reminded. You've already lived with the laws of the world for so long, who can I go to compensate for my mental damage? Len Ruoxue asked with a smile after hearing the demon's words. Instantly, the demon choked. After a long time, he said aggrievedly, I'm innocent. But I heard from Qing Ju that you have prepared a room for the regulations of the heaven and earth. It seems that you two are getting along well. By the way, didn't you just say that you wanted to cause trouble for the laws of heaven and earth? Leng Ruoxue smiled like a flower as she continued to ask. The evildoer felt that he was in a tragic situation. This was all because he wanted to take advantage of her. Sob. He only wanted a little compensation and to take advantage of her. Why did she have to treat him like this? That's right, he did collect rent. At the thought of this, the demon quickly took out a storage ring and said, Schwer, it's just a tenant here. I'm collecting rent. I've collected a lot, you'll be satisfied. Leng Ruoxue took the ring and glanced at it. Oh. There were some medicinal herbs and ores that she didn't quite recognize, but they were really what she needed. However, she did not immediately express her opinion after reading it. This time, the demon was nervous again. Schwer, you're a bastard who doesn't earn money, right? Of course, I wouldn't reject something that was delivered to my door, so I gave it a room and let it live here. But there is absolutely nothing between me and it. It likes Mu Li. The demon once again used the poor Mu Li as a shield. When Leng Ruoxue heard him say this, she felt a little sympathetic towards Mu Li. What kind of lord is this? In order to clear his own name, he used his subordinates as cannon fodder. Schwer, you should give a reaction. Seeing that Leng Ruoxue didn't say anything, the devilish little heart started to tremble again. Thanks, you have permanent residence rights with this little rent? You really don't know how to do business. Leng Ruoxue said with a straight face on purpose. Too little. Don't worry, when we catch it, we'll exploit it together. The demon promised. That's a good idea, let's go find it now. Leng Ruoxue could not wait any longer. Yes. The evildoer was well behaved now and did not dare to mention compensation for the time being. Otherwise, he would definitely be the one in trouble. As they watched the two of them disappear, Uncle Long and the others wanted to ask, can't you bring them along? However, after considering the consequences, everyone gave up on that idea. AI. In this day and age, it was obviously better to avoid trouble. However, even if they had said so, the demon had no intention of bringing them along. He couldn't wait to have some alone time with Schwer. How could he bring so many light bulbs with him? As he thought about the two of them alone, he happened to see the little white cat in Schwer's arms. The evil demon was depressed for a moment, and in the end, he decided to ignore Tsang's existence. After searching the chaotic world for a long time with Schwer, the two of them found nothing. Schwer, that guy must have slipped away. The demon said regretfully. If he didn't grasp the regulations of heaven and earth, he probably wouldn't be able to get any tender tofu. What's wrong? Wasn't this its home? Where can it escape to? Leng Ruoxue was a little surprised. I don't know where it is. In reality, the laws of the heaven and earth can go anywhere and stay anywhere, so it's quite difficult to find it. The demon explained. In that case, I can only let it go for now. Leng Ruoxue was unwilling to accept this. Schwer, don't worry. It will appear sooner or later. As the saying goes, the monk can run, but the temple can't run. Although the rules of heaven and earth can be used everywhere as its home, it still likes this place the most. Therefore, it will definitely come back. The demon said with certainty. Yes, if it doesn't come back, it'll occupy this place so that it can't go home and wander around. Leng Ruoxue said hatefully. Ha ha ha. I think so too. Why don't we just destroy this place? The demon still had this thought and suggested. Ah. Destroy this place. Leng Ruoxue thought to herself, could this be considered telepathy? Of course, she was only thinking about it and did not really plan to destroy this place. After all, this was the birthplace of her master, the demon, Green Vessel, and Azure. If it was really destroyed, she would feel very regretful. I've thought about it too, but I was just trying to scare the rules of the world. After some thought, Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. I'm not trying to scare it. When it didn't want me to build a palace here, I had this idea, but it gave up after it compromised. The demon said honestly. Len Ruoxue was speechless when she heard the demon's words. All right. The mistress of the dark world was indeed the mistress of the dark world. She was truly not afraid of anything. However, she could not do that. After all, she had not reached that stage yet. Moreover, she felt that since the regulations of heaven and earth were scared away by them, they probably didn't want to have a conflict with them. Otherwise, there was no need for them to run away from home. Unfortunately, even though the heaven-earth law had run away from its home to hide, it could not reduce Len Ruoxue's resentment towards it. Thus, the heaven-earth law that was taking refuge in the god world felt a chill in its heart for no reason and could not stop sneezing. Seeing it like this, Ming Ji almost thought that the laws of heaven and earth were sick. However, the laws of heaven and earth were well aware that this was definitely the curse of the violent man and woman. Woo! It had already come out to hide, and you still don't plan on letting it go? It had to be said that the heaven-earth law had instantly changed into a truth emperor. Even though Len Ruoxue couldn't find it now, she brought Uncle Long and the others to start a huge construction in the chaotic world. In just a few days, many small wooden buildings were built. Although the small buildings only had 3 floors, they were built side by side and occupied the entire land of chaos. The speed at which Len Ruoxue and the rest were building the buildings made the guards and city lords of the Netherworld prison drop their jaws. Back then, they had spent a lot of effort to lay the foundation so that the master of the Dark World's palace could stand on the land of the chaotic world. But now, looking at these exquisite little buildings next to each other, the demon's subordinates instantly felt inferior and wanted to find a hole to hide in. The difference was so great that words could not describe it. Uncle Long, who didn't know what they were feeling, looked at the building in front of him and couldn't help but praise himself. This is what I call efficiency. That's right. I thought it would be hard to build houses in the land of chaos, but I realized it was actually quite easy. The great elder of the Craftsmen's Guild also interjected with a smile. He didn't care that the people from the 9 Nether prison wanted to bury themselves in the dust. This hatred was so obvious. However, the Armament Guild headquarters' great elder didn't realize this at all. It wasn't until he felt countless cold daggers in his eyes that he realized that something wasn't right. Turning his head, the great elder looked at the people of Netherworld prison who were staring at him with a puzzled face, and asked dumbly, "What's wrong? Can't bear to see us leave?" "It doesn't matter, our residences are so close. I'll be going to your place often in the future. Who wants you to come and hang out?" The black-clothed men from the Netherworld prison glared at the great elder of the Craftsmen's Guild. Then, they turned around and ran away with tears in their eyes. Chapter 2885, Sang's Small Revenge, 1. Watching their backs, the Armament Guild headquarters Grand Elder was dumbfounded. What was going on? He didn't say anything. Why are they all leaving? Before he left, the other party's resentful eyes made the chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild feel guilty, but he really didn't do anything. The great elder was confused, and so were the others. They all turned to look at the demon, and his face turned red. "What are you looking at me for?" The demon couldn't take it anymore and roared. "Ah! Master Dark, your subordinates seem to be..." Ice Spirit hesitated. He wanted to find a more harmonious word to describe the situation, but before he could think of anything, he was interrupted by the angry demon. "Don't worry about them. It's just an intermittent ventilation," the demon said unhappily. These brats only knew how to embarrass him. The demon was quite angry. Why did he feel inferior? It was the most hurtful. When Len Ruoxue heard this, she couldn't help but think to herself, "Mistress of the Dark World, is it really appropriate for you to speak of your subordinates like this?" Uncle Long and the rest did not know why those people were acting this way. However, with Green Vessel around, Len Ruoxue was clear about it. However, for the sake of evildoer's face, she could only pretend to be confused. After all, this was really not a big deal. Evildoer's subordinates were really too fragile. Moreover, she couldn't understand why there was such a big reaction when it was just building a house. In fact, Although her houses looked like they were made of wood on the outside, they were not that simple on the inside. This was because these houses were the products of her refining some time ago. However, they were only semi-finished products at that time. Now, they had been assembled by Uncle Long and the others. Of course, these houses were also divine artifacts. It was just that the materials used to refine them were somewhat ordinary, so they couldn't be carried around. However, they were still pretty good as residences. As such, she naturally made use of the waste. However, it seemed like he couldn't reveal the fact that these houses were divine artifacts. Otherwise, those glass-hearted subordinates of the demon would definitely be heartbroken. AI. Len Ruoxiu sighed. She really couldn't understand why the people of Netherworld Prison had hearts made of glass. This was really too unscientific. Logically speaking, the people in that world should not be good people. However, the appearance of these evildoers' subordinates had completely subverted her understanding and made her feel a little uncomfortable. Looking at the evildoer, Len Ruoxiu decided not to think about those messy things. Since she had built a house in the land of chaos, of course, she had to celebrate. After all, this would be her base in the future. Although it was still a problem how to get here, she believed that all these could be solved. After knowing Len Ruoxiu's thoughts, Uncle Long and the rest immediately went to make preparations. In fact, everyone treated this as a major event. It had been a long time since Demon City had celebrated its victory. Now that they had a new territory, they couldn't afford to be careless. With this in mind, Uncle Long and the others decided to make a big one. Since they were going to make it a big event, they naturally had to have good food. Food was also the main part of the celebration. Therefore, the stock in Len Ruoxiu's bracelet was quickly reduced. Qing Ju was so angry that he kept saying that they were wasting food. However, no one cared about it and completely ignored Qing Ju's words. This was also the reason why Qing Ju decided to ignore them. Blue shared the same hatred as Green Vessel. It felt that it had been betrayed by Uncle Long and the others, so it chose to ignore them. As for when it would pay attention to them, it would wait until it was less angry. As a result, Uncle Long and the others were in a tragic situation. Originally, as long as they summoned Green Vessel would move them into the bracelet. However, Green Vessel did not come out even after they had called for it for a long time. They had troubled Schwer a lot because of this, but they could not always ask Schwer for help, right? More importantly, every time they went to look for Schwer, the mistress of the dark world would glare at them like a tiger watching its prey. As time passed, they were too embarrassed to trouble Schwer. That wasn't all. It wasn't easy for him to go in and get a lot of food, but in the next second, it all went into Tsang's stomach. Looking at Tsang's round stomach, Uncle Long really wanted to say, "Senior Tsang, do you have a black hole in your stomach? Aren't you afraid of getting full after eating so much?" Of course, the artifact spirit would definitely not be able to hold on. However, they had prepared for several days without any results. Anyone would be depressed to death. Thanks especially when they saw Tsang's small stomach become round after eating and then lie down in the garden to bask in the sun after eating, it was easy to imagine how depressed Uncle Long and the others were. In the end, they couldn't take it anymore and decided to send someone to negotiate with Tsang. The representative they elected was none other than Uncle Long. The extremely unwilling Uncle Long found Tsang in the garden and stood beside him without saying a word. He was looking forward to Senior Tsang taking the initiative to talk to him, but it was clear that Tsang Hong completely ignored him. "Senior Tsang." Uncle Long had no choice but to speak up. Phew, it would have been better if he hadn't said anything. After he finished speaking, he heard Tsang snoring. Uncle Long was speechless. The crowd in the distance was also very anxious. Uncle Long was not doing his job well. Just wake Tsang up and negotiate. When he received the looks and movements of the crowd, Uncle Long was furious. "You bastard!" All they knew was to say, "Come at me if you have the ability." In a fit of anger, Uncle Long went on strike and walked to Dongfang Yu and the others' side angrily. "Uncle Long, why have you returned? The head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild could not help but ask. "I'll go on strike. Whoever wants to go can go, I'm not doing it." Long Shuhua roared. "Don't, Uncle Long. We all have high hopes for you. Can you bear to disappoint us?" Jiang Ning interjected. "How can you bear to?" Uncle Long stared at Jiang Ning for a long time and said honestly. Hearing this, Jiang Ning was dumbfounded. Uncle Long was like this, but he wasn't like this. However, Uncle Long couldn't hear his inner thoughts. He also made up his mind not to touch Senior Tsang's head anymore, since he didn't even care about him. After some thought, Uncle Long suggested, "I suggest that someone else go. Senior Azure doesn't care about me at all, and he's deliberately ignoring me." "Ah. If you wake Senior Tsang up, he'll pay attention to you," Jiang Ning suggested. "Wake him up. Are you going to take responsibility if something happens?" Hearing Jiang Ning's words, Uncle Long couldn't bear it anymore and asked. In fact, he was very clear that Senior Tsang hadn't slept at all. He had been awake the entire time, but he just ignored him. "I can't afford it." Jiang Ning shook his head decisively. It wasn't that he was a coward, but he really couldn't handle the cat. His reaction naturally made Uncle Long roll his eyes. Everyone sighed helplessly. "What are you guys doing here?" Suddenly, a heavenly voice entered their ears. Instantly, everyone present became excited as if they had been injected with chicken blood. A ready-made candidate. Chapter 2886, Tsang's Little Revenge, 2, Senior Ice Soul, the heavens are about to give you a great responsibility. Don't let us down. In an instant, everyone's eyes turned to Ice Spirit. An ominous feeling instantly enveloped Ice Spirit. Without thinking, Ice Spirit turned around and left. "You bastard." These people were so enthusiastic, so it definitely wasn't good. Ice Spirit, who had once been hurt by it, would not walk into the trap this time. However, the monk could run, but the temple Kuden Ti, Uncle Long and the others followed him to his residence and blocked him and Bing Yao in the room. Ice Spirit looked at the people in front of him warily and asked, "What are you guys doing?" "Senior Ice Soul, I have a favor to ask," Uncle Long said with a smile. "Don't beg me. I'm old and can't be counted on." Instinctively, Ice Spirit refused. Upon hearing this, the mouths of the people present twitched. "You bastard. The Divine Lord said he was old. Is there a mistake?" For a reverent god, age was something of the sort. Those were all fleeting clouds. This was because reverent god-level experts had an endless lifespan. As long as they didn't encounter a Dark Lord or a God Lord, they would rarely die. Of course, that didn't include being beaten up by the other reverent god-level cultivators. However, even if they were beaten up by a group of people, it would still take a lot of effort to kill a reverent god-level cultivator. After all, not everyone had the abnormal flames like Shuai. But now, what did Ice Spirit say? Bing Yao, who was in his arms, sobbed with tears in her eyes when she heard this. "Father. You have to live until I grow up." Everyone was speechless and confused. What was going on? I seem to have heard about the separation of life and death. In the entire divinity, there were not many people who could defeat Ice Spirit. But what were the father and son doing? "Senior Ice Soul, where's your integrity?" In order not to help, it was shattered all over the ground. "Please let my father go. He's old, let him enjoy his old age." Taking advantage of the confusion of Uncle Long and the others, Bing Yao continued to speak. No. He really couldn't stand this father and son whose moral integrity had been shattered to pieces. They couldn't help but shiver and feel their stomach churning when they saw Ice Spirit looking pleased after hearing her son's words. What did they miss? Why would a Divine Lord enjoy his old age? Was Ripple Mist dead? You want to enjoy your old age? Bing Yao, Senior Ice Soul is still very young, Uncle Long couldn't help but say. My father is already more than 100,000 years old. There are too many zeros behind him, so don't make things difficult for him. You can make the decisions for big and small matters. Don't let him worry. With tears in her eyes, Bing Yao didn't wait for Uncle Long to finish and continued. When Ice Spirit heard this, the satisfaction on his face became even more obvious. Look, even his son knows how to protect him. What a good son. Bing Pa touched his son's head lovingly, and Bing Yao looked back at his father with adoration. The scene of a loving father and a filial son was too beautiful, and Uncle Long and the others couldn't bear to look at it. You bastard. So what if you have a son? Was there a need to be so white? The crowd was filled with grief and indignation. Then, they turned around and left in anger. As soon as they left, the father and son looked at each other and smiled. Father. You're safe. Bing Yao laughed evilly. Thanks, yes, it's all thanks to our son. Ice Spirit said with a smile. After Uncle Long and the others left, he suddenly came to his senses. Why did they leave just like that? Wasn't this stimulation a little too great? However, since they had already left, they naturally could not be thick-skinned and return. They couldn't count on Senior Ice Soul. They could only rely on themselves. In the end, when Uncle Long said that he would rather die than show up, Dong Fangyu, who was once the god of war, was thrown out by the crowd. The depressed Dong Fangyu looked at these disloyal people and could only brace himself to step forward. Standing next to Tsang and seeing everyone giving him meaningful looks and hand gestures, he deeply understood Uncle Long's pain. Your sister. They were all a bunch of guys who didn't mind standing up and talking. However, since he was being used as cannon fodder, he had to be a useful cannon fodder. Thus, Dong Fangyu didn't even think about it before sitting down on the ground and mumbling nonstop beside Azure's ear. He wanted to get closer to Tsang, so he started talking about the ancient times. He talked about their past and their friendship. From a distance, Uncle Long and the others could barely hear what Dong Fangyu was mumbling about. In addition, the other party had deliberately lowered his voice, so Dong Fangyu's behavior was even more mysterious. What's your brother doing? Uncle Long poked Dong Fanglin and asked curiously. I don't know. I guess he's trying to get close to Tsang. Dong Fanglin guessed. Uncle Long nodded. It was very likely. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said to everyone, let's go back to the room and rest first. We don't know when Dong Fangyu will be able to get close to us, so we just need results. As soon as such disloyal words were spoken, they were immediately responded to by the crowd. Then, they filed out of the garden. Dong Fangyu, who caught a glimpse of this scene from the corner of his eye, was so angry that he almost vomited blood. You bastard! This group of people was really too much. How could he leave himself to face Tsang? Didn't he know that he was also very afraid of Tsang? Especially when Tsang was angry. The depressed Dong Fangyu became even more cautious after that. Who knows how long he talked. Tsang was annoyed and finally couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, shut up. Tsang, you're awake. Hearing Tsang finally speak, Dong Fangyu finally felt that his words were not in vain. Wake up your sister. It wasn't asleep at all right? He just didn't want to talk to this talkative guy. However, Dong Fangyu would rather think that Tsang was moved by his words. After all, they had known each other for so many years and their friendship was not shallow. However, Tsang Ku wasn't as sentimental as he had imagined, and directly threatened, if you say any more nonsense, I'll stuff your mouth shut. Ah! Dong Fangyu was dumbfounded. Did he hear it wrong? Tsang. What about our friendship? Was it thinner than paper? Can't you at least give me some face? Dong Fangyu was wailing in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He continued, Tsang, you see, we've known each other for so many years. Who has known you for so many years? Don't try to get close to me, I don't know you. Tsang rudely interrupted Dong Fangyu before he could finish. Tsang, Dong Fangyu was heartbroken. How could Tsang say that? He really had no conscience. Woo! The heartbroken Dong Fangyu was completely speechless. Could Tsang Yun do this? It's fine if she doesn't have a conscience, but she actually said she doesn't know me? This was too much. They had been neighbors for so many years. Dong Fangyue, who couldn't settle everything, turned around and left the garden with a trace of resentment. Chapter 2887 Azure's Little Revenge 3. He decided that in the future, he would never deal with Tsang, this ruthless guy. Whoever wanted to come, he could come. He was not going to wait on them anymore. When Uncle Long and the others found out that Dong Fangyu had also failed, they all looked at Dong Fanglin with anticipation. Although Dong Fanglin was known for his outstanding intelligence, he admitted that he was powerless in front of Tsang. When that guy threw a tantrum, no one could stop him. Therefore, he immediately refused and suggested that they should ask the owner to come forward. He might not give face to others, but he should at least give face to his master. However, who should go and say these words to Len Ruoxue became a huge problem for everyone. In the past, Uncle Long had always been the one to handle such matters, but this time, he was the first to reject it. He really didn't want to see the Dark Lord's expression anymore. In the end, it was Dong Fanglin who went to explain the matter to Len Ruoxue. Under immense pressure, Dong Fanglin went to look for Len Ruoxue. He was trembling with fear as he told her what had happened in a straightforward and simple manner. After Len Ruoxue heard this, she didn't know what to say. No wonder she didn't see Tsang these few days. He had been causing trouble for Uncle Long and the others. After a moment of silence, Len Ruoxue immediately expressed that she would have a talk with Tsang. After Dong Fanglin heard this, he immediately took his leave to avoid the mistress of the dark world's dagger-like eyes from shooting daggers at him. Sob. The pressure is like a mountain, isn't it? No wonder Uncle Long refused to come. Shuer, let them handle such a small matter on their own. Seeing that Shuer was going to find Tsang, the demon was not satisfied. If Uncle Long and the others could handle it, they wouldn't have come to me. When I'm done talking with Azure, I'll come and accompany you. Len Ruoxue coaxed. These few days, she had been keeping the demon company. After all, they had not seen each other for a long time, and the two of them had a lot to talk about. However, the demon was not satisfied with Len Ruoxue's arrangement and said, I'll go with you to find it. You? Len Ruoxue looked at the evildoer with suspicion. She thought to herself, what if these two guys start fighting when they meet? Who should she help then? Demon, you stay in the room. I'll go by myself. After thinking for a moment, Len Ruoxue felt that it was better to avoid them from meeting, especially after the fierce battle between the two of them had just ended. The atmosphere was still tense. Don't worry, I won't fight it. Knowing what Shuer was worried about, the demon immediately promised. What if it wants to fight you? Len Ruoxue asked helplessly. I won't fight back. The demon continued to guarantee. Seeing that he had already promised, Len Ruoxue naturally could not reject him anymore. She could only bring along the demon, this child from a previous marriage. When she arrived at the garden, Len Ruoxue saw Tsang still lying on the stone table with his eyes closed. Feeling her approach, Tsang Yi only opened his eyes slightly and then closed them again. Tsang. What's wrong with you? Len Ruoxue asked worriedly as she lifted Tsang up. Something didn't seem right. A while ago, he was still full of energy and planned to cause trouble for the demon. Why did he wither these few days? Nothing much. Tsang gave her face and replied softly. He turned around and faced Len Ruoxue with his butt. It was obvious that the little fellow was angry. At this moment, the demon saw this and smiled faintly. Shuer, don't worry. I think it's just going through menopause. Hearing this, Len Ruoxue's face darkened. Azure was an artifact spirit, so how could he have menopause? When Blue heard this, he was enraged and rushed towards evildoer. He stretched out his sharp claws and scratched him. A cold light flashed as he shouted, Your sister is going through menopause. Your whole family is going through menopause. Facing Azure's rage, evildoer didn't panic. He grabbed the fur behind Azure's neck and held Azure in his hand. Azure struggled with all its might, but it had eaten too much in the past few days. Its body had become 2 circles rounder, and its limbs were short and small, so it couldn't break free. Suddenly, Azure was depressed. How detestable. Those who bully Beastie are all bad guys. Nyo. Save me. Seeing that he couldn't break free, Tsang turned to Leng Ruoxue for help. Leng Ruoxue could only shake her head and sigh. Previously, Tsang still had a sickly appearance, but after seeing the demon, he was immediately full of life. Now, he had instantly become a helpless little beast. However, she still took it from the evildoer's hands. Once Tsang Yi regained his freedom, he jumped into Leng Ruoxue's arms. This time, he didn't have to face Leng Ruoxue with his butt. Instead, he looked at Leng Ruoxue with tears in his eyes. Leng Ruoxue's eyes were filled with grievances, and she almost felt heartache for Tsang. However, when she thought about how lively Tsang was before, she gave up on pitying him. She couldn't help but touch Tsang's still round stomach and teased, "You've been eating a lot recently, right? Your movements aren't as agile anymore. Girl, you're despising me." When Tsang Yi heard this, tears immediately rolled down his face, but he didn't let them fall. "Yes, a little. If you continue to put on weight, I won't be able to carry you," Leng Ruoxue said on purpose after hearing Tsang's words. "Shuer, put it down. Don't tire yourself out." The demon also gritted his teeth. He was at a disadvantage because he didn't have a cute and fluffy appearance. The demon was very depressed, but of course, he didn't forget to take the opportunity to sow discord. "Thanks, girl, I'm not fat," Tsang said to Leng Ruoxue as he glared at evildoer. "Tsang, you've already rounded it up, woo. You might not be able to see it, do you want to look in the mirror?" Leng Ruoxue asked with an evil smile. "Don't." Azure Rage knew that he was a little fat, but did he want to be like this? "Tsang, why are you deliberately causing trouble for Uncle Long and the others?" Leng Ruoxue smiled and continued to ask. "Humph. Traitor. They are traitors. Sanghua Avenue. Eh. How are they traitors?" Leng Ruoxue was confused. "I already warned them not to tell this evildoer what Mu Li said, but they still said it," Tsang complained. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she didn't know how to respond. Was it alright to complain in front of her? Especially when Tsang even admitted that he had done something to make the demon depressed. What did he want her to do? At this time, Uncle Long and the others, who had been eavesdropping in a corner, quickly ran out and explained, "Senior Tsang, I'm innocent. We didn't say that. It was the mistress of the dark world who heard it." "Humph. Do you think I'm stupid?" Azure sneered as he looked at Uncle Long and the others with an unfriendly gaze. Uncle Long and the others knew that they were in the wrong, so they could only turn to the evildoer for help. "I did overhear it," the demon said calmly. "They didn't tell me. Jackals of the same tribe." After saying these 4 words, Tsang ignored everyone else and buried his head in Leng Ruoxue's arms. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue knew that Tsang was not going to pursue this matter. After giving Uncle Long and the rest a reassuring look, she carried Tsang away. However, she had only taken 2 steps when she was stopped by Uncle Long and the others. "Uncle Long, I'm taking Tsang with me. It won't cause any more trouble for you." Leng Ruoxue consoled him helplessly. "The little green vessel is not cooperating with us." Uncle Long finally blurted out the truth with a constipated look on his face. Originally, he didn't want to talk about such an embarrassing thing, but it had already been a few days, and he had to say it. Upon hearing this, Leng Ruoxue's forehead was covered in cold sweat. Green Vessel and Azure were going to rebel. No wonder Uncle Long always asked her to help him put in the bracelets. Although she found it strange at that time, she didn't think too much about it. Now, she finally understood. Sighing helplessly, Leng Ruoxue's thoughts changed and she led Uncle Long and the others into the bangle. "Sister, why did you bring these wastrels in?" At the same time that Leng Ruoxue and the rest appeared, Qing Ju appeared as well. He glared at Uncle Long and the rest with an unkind expression as he roared. "We're here to get food." Uncle Long stuttered. "Woo. When these little guys get angry, their auras are not small. Still want to take your sister. You've already taken a lot." Hearing this, Qing Ju immediately became furious. "The things we took were all eaten by Senior Tsang." Uncle Long explained hurriedly when he saw Qing Ju waving his small fists. He was so angry that he was in danger of charging up and beating him up at any moment. All eaten by this damn cat? You're joking, right? How come it didn't die after eating so much?" Qing Ju sneered, obviously not believing Uncle Long's words. "What a joke, do you think he'll die from overeating? Don't you know who I am?" After Green Vessel finished speaking, Zhang Ziyi immediately raised his head and rolled his eyes. "So, you really finished it?" Qing Ju confirmed. "It's me who ate it." Azure didn't deny it. As a man, he had to be daring and take responsibility for his actions. "Qing Ju, give Uncle Long and the others some more." "The celebration was my decision." Leng Ruoxue saw that Qing Ju was hesitating and was afraid that he would not agree, so she had no choice but to step in. "All right. For the sake of Big Sister, I can give you some more." Qing Ju said unwillingly. Then, he glared at Sung and roared, "Damn cat, if I had known that all the food had gone into your stomach, I would have put some rat poison in it." "What did you just say?" "Stinky Green Vessel, let's fight one-on-one." Seeing the other party's provocation, Sung was enraged and pounced towards Green Vessel. However, Green Vessel's figure flashed and disappeared, causing Sung to miss. After that, Sung Yu didn't give up and chased. Uncle Long and the others were tactful and didn't express their opinions when they saw that the two little guys were suspected to be fighting among themselves. In a short while, the food that Qing Ju had moved out was piled up at their feet. With food in hand, Uncle Long and the rest were not willing to stay a second longer. They immediately asked Leng Ruoxue to send them out. It wasn't peaceful here. After sending Uncle Long off, Leng Ruoxue left with the demon. It wasn't easy for him to have a chance to be alone with Shuer again, so of course, the evildoer wasn't willing to let it go. Immediately, he pulled Leng Ruoxue back to the room to express his feelings. The next day, the celebratory dinner that everyone had been waiting for was finally ready. After a round of eating and drinking, both the host and the guest were happy. However, after eating this meal, the people from Netherworld Prison all felt bad again. Woo! They were both humans, but why was there such a huge difference? A strong sense of inferiority surrounded them for a long time and did not go away. However, the current Leng Ruoxue didn't have the time to be their intimate sister. She had already decided to go into seclusion to refine pills and weapons. After knowing Leng Ruoxue's thoughts, the demon expressed his support. However, he requested to watch from the side. Leng Ruoxue naturally wouldn't reject such a small request. Because it wasn't just him, the Grand Elder of the Armament Guild headquarters and the others also needed to watch. Chapter 2888, Disobedient Medicinal Herb, 1. After preparing everything, Leng Ruoxue planned to start refining in the Purple Bamboo House's alchemy and weapon refining room. However, after Qing Ju found out about her plan, he smiled at her and said, "Sister, I suggest you go outside and make it." What? Leng Ruoxue was dumbfounded when she heard Qing Ju's suggestion. Was she being despised? "Sister, I sincerely advise you not to ask why," Qing Ju said with a mysterious expression. Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face was filled with even more question marks when she heard him say this without explaining the reason. What was going on? Qing Ju had actually kept her in suspense again. This gave Leng Ruoxue a bad feeling, but Qing Ju did not say why. Leng Ruoxue was in a dilemma. However, since she had been chased out, she could only bring the demon and the rest away from the bracelet. However, before she left, her resentful gaze made Qing Ju feel rather happy. Hee hee. He truly felt that his sister was very cute. After leaving the bracelet, Len Ruoxue had no choice but to find a temporary room to act as a pill and weapon refining room. That gloomy mood had been with her the entire time. Only today did she know how bad it felt to be despised by others. Sob. Len Ruoxue looked at Lu Feng with teary eyes and said with a choked voice, "Lu Feng, I won't despise you anymore." Lu Feng was dumbfounded when he heard this. Fuck. What did this have to do with him? How did it end up with him? Flowing Maple was quite indignant, but the first elder of the Craftsmen's Guild and the others laughed out loud without any sense of loyalty. Lu Yue patted her brother's shoulder in understanding. "Brother, you've finally made it. You are all bad guys." Lu Feng, who was extremely angry, roared. He didn't offend anyone, so why did he get shot while lying down? At the thought of this, he looked at Len Ruoxue with a bitter expression. His eyes were red as he said, "Shuer, don't you feel any guilt for bullying me?" Of course, Len Ruoxue did not. Not only that, but when she saw Lu Feng's resentful eyes, her fragile heart was miraculously healed. It seemed that with someone to accompany him in his misfortune, he could share the burden. Len Ruoxue finally understood. After sorting out her emotions, Len Ruoxue took out her pill furnace and decided to start with refining pills. After all, compared to refining weapons, she was more interested in pills. After that, she arranged the medicinal herbs in order. The Chaos Divine Pill was not part of the well-known Divine Pill system. According to Qing Ju, it was a magical and omnipotent pill. Simply put, it could bring a dead person back to life immediately after eating it. Of course, a dead person could only be a deity, and that deity's soul and consciousness had yet to completely dissipate. Otherwise, no matter how miraculous this pill was, it would not be able to save him. But even so, it was enough for Len Ruoxue to be amazed. She never would have thought that there would be such a miraculous pill in the world. Back then, if his cheap master had such a pill, he might not have fallen. When she told Qing Ju about her idea, Qing Ju told her disappointedly that no one had ever refined a Chaos Divine Pill. Of course, no one was referring to her master. In other words, her master had never refined Chaos Divine Pills before. At that time, Len Ruoxue was once again stunned. Even her master had never refined it before, so why did she have to refine it? Thanks, could it be that this heaven-defying art was also used to bully newbies? The moment Qing Ju said that, Len Ruoxue realized that the heaven-defying art's requirements for her and her master were different. To put it bluntly, it was racial discrimination. After that, she confirmed everything from Qing Ju. However, Qing Ju also told her that her master did not need to refine Chaos Divine Pills or acquired Chaos Divine Weapons because she was born in the land of chaos. The heaven-defying art was associated with her master. Simply put, the heaven-defying art was tailor-made for her master. However, she was not. Because of this, the heaven-defying incantations requirements for her were also ridiculously high. However, Qing Ju also told her that although her cheap master had never refined Chaos Divine Pills before, she had acquired Chaos Divine Weapons. In addition, compared to refining pills, her master preferred refining weapons. Len Ruoxue had long known about this. However, what Len Ruoxue could not stand the most was Qing Ju telling her that there was no recipe for the Chaos Divine Pill and that she had to explore it on her own. When Len Ruoxue heard this grievous news, she was in a complete mess. This was the first time she had heard of a Chaos Divine Elixir and he was going to let her explore it on her own? Wasn't this a scam? As such, Len Ruoxue's heart was filled with tears as she looked at the medicinal herbs in front of her. Qing Ju, you're definitely a piece of trash that will harm your sister. Although there were many medicinal herbs in front of him, the feeling of not knowing where to start was really too uncomfortable. Seeing that Len Ruoxue had not moved for a long time, Shen Nua asked in confusion, "Shuer, why aren't you making the Chaos Divine Pill?" "I don't know how to make it." Looking at Shen Nua, Len Ruoxue finally revealed the secret that had been buried in her heart for a long time. Instantly, the jaws of the surrounding alchemists dropped. This was too much of a joke, right? You're already preparing to refine the pill, yet you don't know the pill recipe. If it wasn't for Leng Ruoxu's extremely serious yet depressed expression, everyone would have suspected that she was just playing with them. Without the pill formula, how can I refine it? Looking at the countless precious herbs in front of him, Jiang Ning's heart ached so much that it bled. Green Vessel asked me to explore on my own. The only thing he can do is to supply me with an unlimited number of medicinal herbs. Leng Ruoxue replied honestly. Ah. Did he not know the pill recipe? How did he know about the existence of chaos divine pills? The head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild asked in confusion. I was born to know. Leng Ruoxue said powerlessly. When Qing Ju said that, she had no energy to even ridicule him. It was really too hurtful, wasn't it? Ah. All right. Everyone was helpless. They didn't understand the lives in the land of chaos. This is an inheritable memory. When we are born, our minds are filled with cultivation methods that are related to us. The demon explained when he saw everyone's reaction. This time, everyone was even more at a loss for words. They couldn't understand the feeling of being born with high-quality goods. Leng Ruoxue fell silent as well. She looked at the demon with a face full of hidden bitterness. Seeing this, the demon thought that Shuai was worried that she couldn't make it, so he quickly comforted her. Shuai, don't worry about the herbs. If there's not enough, I'll go and rob little Tian. I'm not worried. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue really wanted to draw a circle and curse all these scammers, especially with Green Vessel as their leader. Then hurry up and refine it. The demon said impatiently. All right then. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She stared at the pill in front of her and pondered for a long time. In the end, she chose 2 medicinal herbs that grew in the land of chaos and threw them into the pill furnace that had been heated up for a long time. Chapter 2889, The Disobedient Herb, 2. As soon as the herbs were put into the furnace, everyone's eyes were drawn to the furnace. They stared at the pill in front of them without blinking. The decisive moment. Ugh! In other words, the important moment to witness the melting of plants in the land of chaos had finally arrived. However, even when everyone's eyes were sore from staring, there was no reaction at all to the medicinal herbs that were thrown into the pill furnace. The 2 herbs were still lying in the middle of the furnace, intact. Shuai, is the fire not hot? After staring for a long time, Jiang Ning finally couldn't help but ask. This isn't hot. Leng Ruoxue felt that if she were to throw a piece of meat in, she would be burned to ashes immediately. However, she didn't stop Jiang Ning when he tried to reach for the furnace. Then, as she had wished, she heard Jiang Ning's ear-piercing scream. Ah! Ah! So hot! It's burning me! Woo! Jiang Ning held his hand that was red from the heat and jumped up and down. The chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters took a closer look and said calmly, It's cooked. It can't be, right? Everyone was surprised and stepped forward in unison. At this moment, one of Jiang Ning's hands was red and swollen, and there was even white mist coming out of it. As everyone was amazed, they completely forgot to comfort Jiang Ning, who was in excruciating pain. How mature is it? Lu Feng muttered to himself out of curiosity. At least 80%. The head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters replied with a smile. However, everyone present obviously had different opinions and each of them had their own guesses. Do you have any humanity left in you? I'm in so much pain. Jiang Ning roared in grief and anger as he listened to the crowd shamelessly discussing how his hand had matured. Don't you know how to take your own healing pill? What, do we have to feed you? Wasn't his other hand fine? Don't pretend to be injured. After hearing Jiang Ning's words, Lu Feng blinked his eyes and said with a look of disdain. It was obvious that he had no intention of sympathizing with Jiang Ning. In his opinion, Jiang Ning's head must have been smashed by a meteorite. Otherwise, why would he do such a stupid thing? Why was he using his hands to get close to the pill furnace? You might as well jump into the pill furnace. I'm already injured, so I'm not pretending. Although Lu Feng's words were what everyone was thinking, Jiang Ning was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. This bunch of people were indeed inhumane. In order to seek comfort, Jiang Ning couldn't help but turn to look at Leng Ruoxue. He looked at her pitifully and said, "Shuai, I'm injured." "Wu. I saw it. Hurry up and eat the healing pill." Leng Ruoxue glanced at Jiang Ning and said in a speechless manner. If it wasn't for the fact that she had noticed that Jiang Ning had restrained the fire under his furnace, this guy's hand would have been crippled. Therefore, at this moment, she didn't feel sorry for Jiang Ning at all. He was completely asking for it. Seeing how cold Shuai was to him, Jiang Ning's fragile heart was shattered once again. Woo! No wonder there's a saying that birds of a feather flock together. These guys are indeed a group of inhumane and cold-blooded bastards. Seeing that no one sympathized with and consoled him, the sorrowful and worried Jiang Ning could only resentfully try to save himself. After taking a healing pill, the injury on his hand also recovered. Don't do anything stupid in the future. You can't touch a flame that's not your own. Seeing that Jiang Ning was fine, Lu Feng acted like an understanding brother again and reminded him. Thanks. Jiang Ning didn't have the energy to complain. He lowered his head and walked to a corner to draw circles. Woo-woo. Bad guy. A bunch of bad guys. Seeing Jiang Ning's childish behavior, the crowd couldn't help but laugh. As for Jiang Ning, he was so embarrassed that he wanted to hide in a hole. After this small incident, everyone's attention was once again drawn to the pill furnace, except for Jiang Ning, who was drawing circles in the corner. After their own experience in Jiang Ning, they knew that it wasn't because the flames weren't hot enough. They could only wait patiently. 1 day, 2 days. There was still no change in the medicinal herbs in the pill furnace. Leng Ruoxue was going crazy. 5 days had already passed by now, but this medicinal ingredient actually didn't move at all. What the hell was this? If it wasn't for the fact that this medicinal herb had no spiritual intelligence, Leng Ruoxue really wanted to grab it and interrogate it thoroughly. But now, what could he do? Seeing that Leng Ruoxue seemed to be a little frustrated, the weapon master Grand Elder consoled her with his experience. Shuai, we can't rush to melt the materials. Let's wait patiently. Hearing this, Leng Ruoxue really wanted to say that she was already very patient. It was true. It had been 5 days. If it was in the past, after so many days, she would have already refined who knows how many medicinal pills. However, there was no other way. Just like that, everyone decided to split up and guard the pill furnace. This way, they could also take turns to rest. After the jobs were assigned, the first on duty, the Armament Guild headquarters Great Elder, drove everyone away. After the crowd was driven away, the first elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters looked at the 2 medicinal herbs lying quietly in the pill furnace and frowned with worry. Herbs, why are you so disobedient? Quickly melt it. The blacksmith would always mutter to himself as he looked at the medicinal ingredients in the furnace. As a blacksmith, he was quite clear about the bitterness of materials that could not be dissolved. Therefore, even though he appeared to be very calm and consoled Shuai, in reality, he was quite anxious. Unfortunately, these medicinal herbs did not give him much face. Several days had passed, but there was no sign of them melting at all. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue, who was unwillingly dragged back into the room by the evildoer, was also so depressed that she did not want to say a word. Shuai, the demon consoled, the materials from the chaotic world are a little stubborn. Don't worry. I've been refining pills for so long, but this is the first time I've suffered a blow because of the lack of materials. But don't worry, I just can't accept it for a while. It'll be fine after a few days of adjustment. Leng Ruoxue said as she didn't want the evildoer to worry. Yes, Shuai, although I don't know anything about alchemy or equipment refining, I know that nothing can be rushed, especially when it comes to cultivation. So, take it easy, what's this little setback? The evildoer pulled Len Ruoxue into his arms and continued to comfort her gently. I will. Give me a few days. Len Ruoxue wrapped her arms around the evildoer's waist and said. Swear, I'll take you somewhere. The evildoer added after hearing this. With that, he did not wait for Len Ruoxue's response and disappeared with her. In the blink of an eye, Len Ruoxue was brought to a foggy area by the demon. As far as he could see, there was only thick fog around him, nothing else. Looking at the unfamiliar place, Len Ruoxue could not help but ask, Evildoer, where is this place? This is the place where I was born. The demon said directly. Really? Len Ruoxue was rather surprised. She never thought that the evildoer would actually bring her to his birthplace. Chapter 2890, Disobedient Medicinal Herb, 3, N. Not only me, you, Green Vessel, and Sung were all born here. Oh right, there's also the laws of heaven and earth. We've been nurtured here for a very, very long time, before we finally have a trace of intelligence. And after it gained sentience, who knows how many tens of thousands of years had passed before the two of us that you see now came to be. The demon explained with a faint smile. Schwer, do you understand what I mean? After explaining, the demon asked again. Yes. Len Ruoxue nodded. The demon wanted to tell her that the life forms in the land of chaos could not be born in a short period of time. In other words, it was the same even if there were no materials for life forms here. So, you have to be patient when you face us. The demon requested in a serious manner. Hearing this, Len Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh out loud. She then teased, you guys aren't the materials. But we're all from the chaos world. Think about it, chaos took so long to give birth to life forms like us. Those lifeless materials may appear much later than us, but they were born in the same place as us. This proves that they are extraordinary. If they were placed in the immortal realm, these things would definitely be heavenly and earthly treasures, incomparably precious. Thus, it would definitely take a lot of time to melt them. Also, the materials that can exist here, be it plants or minerals, must be extremely hard. Otherwise, I'm afraid they would have been crushed to pieces by the violent Ling energy here, and you wouldn't have the chance to get them. The demon said again. Evildoer, I understand now. Thank you. After listening to the demon speak so much, Len Ruoxue understood his painstaking efforts. The gloominess in her heart dissipated bit by bit. At the same time, she didn't want the demon to worry about her because of alchemy. Seeing that Schwer had thought things through, the demon revealed a beautiful smile and said, Schwer, let's spend a few days here alone. All right. Len Ruoxue nodded. At this moment, she decided to forget everything and stay here with the demon for a few days with all her heart. Without Uncle Long and the others, and without any disturbance, it should be a true two-person world, right? In the following days, Len Ruoxue and the demon built a simple house here and settled down with peace of mind. Initially, the two of them only planned to stay for a few days. However, they had unknowingly stayed for almost a month. It was only when it was Len Ruoxue's turn to be on duty that the two of them reluctantly left the spawn place of the evildoer. The two of them returned home with a hint of sweetness on their bodies. When Uncle Long and the others saw this, they deliberately pretended not to know anything and said nothing. However, Len Ruoxue felt a little guilty. Hence, the moment she returned home, she immediately went into the pill refinement room. Now that Len Ruoxue had run away, the gossipy Uncle Long and the rest naturally had no intention of letting the demon off. Looking at the crowd surrounding him, causing him to fall behind and unable to keep up with Schwer's footsteps, the evildoer's cold aura dissipated, and he said with a straight face, What are you guys trying to do? Hee, Mistress Dark, where did you and Schwer go to play? Uncle Long smiled ambiguously and asked curiously. What, you guys want to go too? The demon didn't answer but asked a question instead. His question stunned Uncle Long and the others. Want to go? They didn't know, but they definitely wanted to gossip. Unfortunately, the demon didn't give them a chance to speak. With a thought, Uncle Long and the others disappeared. The people who disappeared also included those who could help Shuai with her work. Looking at the empty garden in front of him, the demon was satisfied. It's done. He and Shuai could have some alone time again. It was really good. The demon was quite satisfied with his actions. He was satisfied, but it was a tragedy for Uncle Long and the others. Uncle Long and the others were dumbfounded when they saw the unfamiliar place. You bastard! Where is this place? What am I doing here? Suddenly, a surprised voice was heard. Everyone turned around at the same time. The one who spoke was Ice Spirit, who was holding her son with a blank face. Uncle Long and the others swallowed their saliva when they saw the Ice Soul. They couldn't believe it. How did Senior Ice Soul get teleported here? If they didn't remember wrongly, this old Qilin was in the room with its baby at that time. However, when they saw the familiar face in front of them, they instantly understood. This was definitely the rhythm of getting rid of these third wheels. But could he let them know before he moved these light bulbs over? They weren't mentally prepared for such a silent response. Sob. The unfamiliar environment made everyone cry. Who can answer my questions? Why am I here? Ice Spirit asked again when no one answered her. Senior Ice Spirit, we can't answer your question because we don't know why we're here. Uncle Long said with a bitter face. Could it be an enemy attack? Ice Spirit could only imagine. This was too strange. He didn't feel anything before he was moved to another place. Who did this? Ice Spirit thought for a moment and figured out the truth. Is it the Dark Mistress Ortsang? Ice Spirit asked after sighing. Other than the two of them, no one else had the ability. Mistress of the Dark World. Uncle Long told him honestly. Are we in his way? As an experienced person, Ice Spirit understood the Mistress of the Dark World's thoughts without even thinking. He and Shuai went somewhere to spend some alone time together. We just asked, and that's why it's like this now. Uncle Long said with an aggrieved expression. It's Uncle Long who asked this, it has nothing to do with us. Why did you bring us here? After Uncle Long finished speaking, Jiang Ning didn't know how to answer. They still had their jobs, okay? They could also help Shuai, so why did he throw them out like trash? Jiang Ning was filled with grief and indignation. After hearing what he said, everyone instantly moved away from him on their own accord to avoid being implicated by this fool. Thanks, this hatred was really strong. Didn't you see how angry Uncle Long was? He actually dared to say that. AI. You're looking for death. As expected, as soon as this thought appeared in everyone's mind, Uncle Long, whose eyes were spitting fire, grabbed Jiang Ning by the collar and gave him a good beating. As he beat him up, Uncle Long still didn't vent his anger and roared, "Fuck you, don't tell me you're not curious. I'm only asking to satisfy everyone's curiosity. You want to push all the blame onto me? Uncle Long, woo, I was wrong. I was wrong. I didn't mean it that way. Don't hit me, don't hit my face," Jiang Ning, who had been beaten up, cried and begged. At this moment, he finally understood the meaning of the words "cause of disaster." However, what made him even more depressed was that he was being beaten up, and there was no righteous person who came to stop him. Sob. Jiang Ning was heartbroken. Was there really no one who was willing to do good nowadays? Obviously, he would not be able to find it now. The Reverend God experts turned a blind eye to Uncle Long's anger, so the Great Elder of the Craftsmen's Guild and the other divine emperors were even more helpless. As such, Jiang Ning's beating was inevitable. By the time Uncle Long was done venting, Jiang Ning's face was as swollen as a pig's head. He felt his face tense. He didn't need to look to know that his handsome face was definitely gone. Woo! I told you not to hit my face. Squatting on the ground, Jiang Ning sobbed and refused to raise his head. I like to hit people's faces. Uncle Long said coldly. Ah. Jiang Ning didn't dare to speak anymore. He hid behind Ice Spirit like a mistreated wife. Ice Spirit sighed helplessly and said, "What should we do now? What is this place?" He wasn't worried about anything else, but he was afraid that his son wouldn't be able to withstand the spiritual energy here. However, the spiritual chi here did not seem to be as violent as the place where they lived, so of course, it was not rich. "I don't know," everyone shook their heads in unison. Clearly, everyone was at a loss. Then, everyone looked at each other and sighed. His heart slowly sank. From the looks of it, if the mistress of the dark world didn't take the initiative to bring them back, they probably wouldn't be able to find their way home. Woo. Words could not describe everyone's sorrow at the moment, but the demon's mood was extremely good. When Len Ruoxue saw the demon who entered the pill refining room, she could clearly feel his jubilant mood. "Good news?" Len Ruoxue asked curiously. "It's a good thing for me." The demon laughed evilly. "Ah. Doesn't it count for others?" Len Ruoxue was even more curious now. "Hee hee. I don't know." The demon laughed smugly. "What did you do?" Len Ruoxue asked suspiciously. "You've done a good thing. Uncle Long and the others were curious about where we could spend our time alone, so I sent them there." The demon said with a smile, his face full of joy. He thought that it would be difficult to have real alone time after coming back, but he didn't expect it to be possible. Len Ruoxue was silent. This was definitely not a good thing for Uncle Long and the others. At this moment, Len Ruoxue could already imagine the sorrowful and desolate faces of Uncle Long and the others. They were trapped in a strange place like pitiful little children, unable to return home. Ugh! He was really too pitiful. However, she had to admit that she had forgotten about her friends when she saw a man. Because she saw how happy the demon was, she actually didn't have the thought of letting him bring Uncle Long and the others back. This really shouldn't have happened. But since the demon was happy, she would pretend that she didn't know. After making up her mind, Len Ruoxue no longer mentioned this matter. It was as if she had forgotten about the existence of Uncle Long and the others. However, there was a price to pay for acting dumb. Without the Armament Guild headquarters Great Elder to change shifts with her, she could only look after the pill furnace by herself. However, with the demon accompanying her, she was not lonely. 2 months later, Len Ruoxue, who had been patiently watching over the medicinal herbs in the furnace, finally saw signs of the medicinal herbs melting. Len Ruoxue was overjoyed when she saw this. The heavens do not disappoint those who work hard. They finally saw some light. However, the dawn light seemed to have lasted for a long time, and the speed at which the medicinal herbs were dissolving could be described as the speed of a turtle. Patience. He had to be patient. Len Ruoxue kept encouraging herself in her heart. After half a year, the 2 medicinal herbs finally completely dissolved into liquid. Looking at the transparent liquid medicinal ingredients in the furnace, Len Ruoxue was so touched that she was on the verge of tears. This was definitely the longest time she had ever refined a pill. And this was only the beginning. Chapter 2891, Explosion, 1. Reigning in her excitement, Len Ruoxue was about to throw the other herbs into the pill furnace. However, before she could do anything, the medicinal liquid in the pill furnace started to boil and bubble. Len Ruoxue could not understand what was going on. What was going on? But before she could figure it out, the pill furnace in front of her suddenly emitted white smoke. Then, she heard a loud bang and the pill furnace exploded in front of her. Len Ruoxue was completely dumbfounded. The demon who had just come back from outside heard the explosion and his expression changed. He hurried over to see what was going on. Seeing the room in a mess, Shuer sitting in front of the broken pill furnace with her clothes dirty, her face and body covered with charred explosives, the demon was extremely worried and quickly hugged the dazed Shuer into his arms. "Shuer, are you hurt?" The demon searched Len Ruoxue's body for possible injuries and was extremely worried. However, Len Ruoxue did not give any response. This time, the demon was even more worried. "Shuer, don't scare me. Why don't you say something?" the demon shouted. It was a pity that Leng Ruoxue was still like a wooden person, dull and silly. What happened? At this moment, the anxious Grand Elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters and the others also ran in from outside in a panic. They had just been brought back by the mistress of the dark world, and before they could even step into the house, they heard a loud bang, which gave them a shock. If this wasn't the land of chaos, they would have thought that their homes had been attacked by the miasma again. However, they then remembered that Shuai was refining pills, so they didn't dare to delay and all ran towards the pill refining room. Looking at the mess in the alchemy room, everyone immediately understood that the explosion had occurred because of the failure of the alchemy. However, they couldn't understand it. Wasn't it normal to fail in refining pills and weapons? He had never heard of anyone's pill furnace exploding. At the thought of this, Uncle Long and the others all turned their eyes to the alchemists and artifact masters present. Why are you guys looking at us? You should be worried about Shuai now. The Grand Elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters was extremely speechless. A failed pill refinement will cause an explosion. Is it that dangerous? Uncle Long blinked his eyes and asked in confusion. He wanted to care about Shuai too. However, with the mistress of the dark world around, how could they dare to stand out? What if the mistress of the dark world was in a bad mood and threw them to an unknown, strange place? Where would they go to cry then? Therefore, even if they wanted to ask about Shuai's condition, they did not dare to get close. They could only pray that Shuai would be fine. Generally speaking, they won tea. It's very safe to refine pills and weapons, but we can't rule out unexpected situations. After some thought, the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters explained. When Uncle Long and the others heard this, they truly felt that it was as good as nothing. What was an emergency situation? Shuai should be fine now, right? However, what they were more concerned about was what to do after the sudden situation. Shuai looked like she had suffered a blow, but she didn't say a word. This made them very worried. At this moment, the room they were in creaked again. Creak. The moment everyone saw this, they immediately raised their guard. The demon carried Shuai and left the alchemy room immediately. Uncle Long and the rest followed closely behind. Just as everyone ran to the courtyard, they saw the house in front of them collapse. Everyone was dumbfounded. Your sister. This house was a divine artifact. Could refining a pill have such great power? That was not all. After one of the houses collapsed, the rest of the houses collapsed one by one, as if it was the domino effect. Thanks looking at this grand occasion, everyone suddenly felt a little numb. After looking at each other, they turned to look at the demon, hoping that he would make a decision. What are you looking at me for? Hurry up and clean up this rubbish. Oh right, think of a way to restore it to its original state, don't let Shuai find out anything. The demon ordered in a bad mood. He was a little angry. If Shuai didn't think that it was taking too long and asked him to bring these people back, he would have been able to stay by Shuai's side and she wouldn't have to face the explosion alone. Shuai must have been frightened. The demon's heart ached when he thought of this. They looked at Uncle Long and the others with cold and unfriendly eyes. How could he still remember that he was the one who had sent Uncle Long and the others away? In any case, it was their fault for letting Shuai face it alone and be frightened. After that, the demon carried Shuai and left the dilapidated courtyard. After the demon left, everyone was once again dumbfounded. The mistress of the dark world wanted them to restore this place to its original state. However, the houses here were all refined by Shuai. Without Shuai's help, it would be difficult for them to build identical houses. After all, Shuai's armament refining skills were unparalleled. More importantly, the materials used to refine these houses were all ordinary materials. Even if the first elder and the other armament masters could refine the same ones, the hardness of the houses would definitely be different. At that time, wouldn't Shuai be able to tell with one look? More importantly, no one believed that Shuai would not have heard what the mistress of the dark said just now. Shuai wasn't really stupid, she was just shocked for a moment. AI. What should they do now? Everyone couldn't help but sigh. After sighing, they all turned their gazes to the few craftsmen present. Great Elder, I'll have to trouble you. We'll be in charge of building the houses, so we'll have to leave the forging to you. Uncle Long said helplessly. It wasn't easy for him to find a place to stay in the land of chaos. Now, he was back to square one. We'll do our best. The head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters said with a headache. Yes. If there's anything you need help with, just tell me. Uncle Long said. Of course, he was just being polite because he knew that they couldn't interfere in the matter of weapon refinement at all. When the head elder of the Craftsmen's Guild heard this, he only nodded his head indifferently. Then, he brought the other craftsmen to find a place to refine. Of course, the place they were referring to was the Palace of the Demon. Now that their own residence was destroyed, they could only rely on others again. After finding the captain of the guards who was familiar with him and explaining his intentions, the captain of the guards was obviously in a difficult position. What, can't I? The great elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters asked again when he saw that someone had not given a reply after a long time. Sure, but you guys won't blow up our place too, right? The guard captain asked worriedly. They had spent a long time and effort to build this palace. Don't worry, we're only using ordinary materials. The chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild guaranteed. Chapter 2892, Explosion, 2, Alright then. Follow me, the captain of the guards unwillingly led the chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild to the backyard. Although he was unwilling, he did not dare to reject these people's requests. After all, they were the future Netherworld Empress people. More importantly, he was afraid that these people would complain to his lord. After leading the Craftsman Guild's Grand Elder and the others to a remote courtyard, the guard captain turned around and left with a worried look. After a certain team leader left, the Armament Guild headquarters Grand Elder and a few others looked at each other, then sighed again before starting their heavy armament refining work. After half a month, with the efforts of several craftsmen, they finally built 2 courtyards. However, even so, Uncle Long and the others still complained about their low work efficiency. Upon hearing this, the chief elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters was unhappy and immediately went on strike. He only left a message for Uncle Long and the others, you guys can refine it yourselves. Uncle Long and the others were collectively driven mad by the strike led by the first elder of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters. You bastard! If they knew how to refine artifacts, they would have helped long ago, but they didn't know how to do it. What should I do now? Looking for Schwer? The Dark Lord would beat them up. More importantly, Schwer had been in a dazed state of silence for the past half a month, which made them extremely worried. They didn't dare to let Schwer worry about such a small matter. With no other choice, Uncle Long and the others could only go and beg the proud craftsmen. After coaxing them for a long time, they finally resumed work. After this incident, Uncle Long and the others also deeply realized that in this day and age, no matter who you offended, you couldn't offend a guy with a skill. Look, they went on strike just like that, throwing the mess to them, and they just couldn't fix it. This fact made them extremely depressed. However, even though they were depressed, they didn't dare to bring this matter up to the demon. This was because the mistress of the dark world had been emotionally unstable recently. She was like a time bomb that could explode at any time. In particular, the area within a 100-mile radius of the mistress of the dark world's main hall was extremely cold, almost turning into an ice cave. The Dark Lord's main hall. Len Ruoshue, who was placed in the main hall by the demon, sat there in a daze without saying a word. Although the demon at the side was so anxious that his hair was about to turn white, he didn't know how to comfort Schwer. Because no matter what he said, Schwer would not respond to him, which made him go crazy. As time passed, he could only sit quietly by Schwer's side. The evildoer, who had been staring at Len Ruoshue, suddenly felt Schwer's finger move. He quickly ran to her side and held her hand. Schwer, you're willing to talk to me now? Unfortunately, there was still no response. The infuriated evildoer ran to the courtyard and roared, "Qingju, damn Qingju, get out here. Damn it." Green Vessel must have known about the explosion, or else he would not have asked Shui to come out and refine pills. However, he didn't disclose this matter at all. No one was prepared for such an outcome. The demon was burning with anger. However, no one responded to the demon either. At this moment, Qingju, who was in the bracelet, was also gloomily drawing circles in the corner of the wall. Opposite him, a cat with a snow-white body was glaring at him with a pair of fire-spewing eyes. "What else do you have to say?" Sung asked coldly. The hair on his body was standing up, it was obvious how angry he was. However, Green Vessel ignored it. This fact made Sung even angrier. How detestable. Do you want to be a turtle after doing something wrong? Thanks, it's no use pretending to be mute. You have to give me a clear explanation. Sung roared. Explain what? Qingju raised his head and asked gloomily. He didn't think he had anything to explain to the cat, and more importantly, he wasn't in the mood to explain. Sob. His sister was ignoring him. No matter how he called out, his sister ignored him. This made Qingju extremely depressed. His sister must be angry with him. Qingju's heart was filled with guilt. He did know that the materials in the land of chaos would explode if they were not controlled well. However, he did not hide it on purpose. He only hoped that his sister would discover the secret herself. After all, the person who refined the pill was his sister, and he was eager for her to become a dragon. However, he had never dreamed that an explosion would cause such a huge blow to his sister. It even made his sister close her heart, making it impossible for him to know what his sister was thinking. This made him feel extremely uneasy. Sister, don't tell me you don't want me. Sob. Qingju was a little scared. And at this time, that annoying fellow Tsang was still looking for trouble with him. What do you mean explain? I'm warning you, don't play dumb. Although I can't teach you a lesson here, you'll come out one day. At that time, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. Azure roared. I don't have anything to explain to you. After Qingju finished speaking, he immediately shifted the eyesore, Tsang, out of the room. He had wanted to do this for a long time, but he was not in the mood to execute it. Tsang, who was sent out, saw that the scene in front of him had changed. In front of him was a demonic man who was also staring at him with wide eyes. The anger in his heart rose. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen me before? Tsang shouted in a bad mood. After shouting, he immediately ran into the room to see Leng Ruoxue. It took a while for the monster who was shouted at to come back to his senses. Your sister. He had called for Qingju. Why did he call this fellow out? Qingju, I told you to get out. Why did you let that cat out? The demon was furious again. However, at this moment, he was not in the mood to settle the score with Qingju. He quickly turned around and entered his room. As soon as he entered the room, evildoer saw Tsang Xiao curled up in Leng Ruoxue's arms. Instantly, his anger rose again. Damn it! Even at this time, he still did not forget to take advantage of Shui. The furious evildoer took a few steps forward and wanted to throw Tsang out of Leng Ruoxue's arms. However, Tsang only smiled calmly. What, you want my position too? You're just jealous, right? If it's too big, you won't be able to get in. You, evildoer Azure gritted his teeth in anger. However, he couldn't deny Azure's words because he really wanted to. Don't quarrel. Just then, Leng Ruoxue suddenly spoke. Hearing Shui's voice, Evil Demon and Sung Quan were stunned. The dispute was quelled in an instant. The man and the beast stared at Leng Ruoxue in disbelief, afraid that what they heard was just an illusion. Shuai, are you talking? After a long time, seeing that Shuai had only said that one sentence, the demon asked carefully again. Yes, I'm sorry to have made you worry. Leng Ruoxue said guiltily. It's fine, as long as you're willing to talk. The demon was overjoyed. Shuai was finally awake. If he continued to ignore her, he couldn't guarantee what he would do.